Carolyn? Ask Paul. Paul, you ready? Ask Paul if he's ready. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. The Ridgewood Village Council. This is a public workshop. The date is February 2nd, 2022, or 2222. The time is 7:33 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same, as provided by law of a schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Councilwoman Perrin.
Here.
Councilwoman Reynolds.
Here.
Councilman Vagianos.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Seaton.
Here.
And Mayor Knudsen.
Here. Please join us for the flag salute. Please join us in a moment of silence for our men and women serving our nation and all of our first responders. Thank you. With that, we will go to public comment, not to exceed 3 minutes per person for a total of 40 minutes. Please remember to step up to the microphone, name and address, and try to speak clearly into the microphone. As a reminder, we appreciate everyone keeping their masks on, and the downstairs Annie Zuzi room is open for any overflow. If there's anyone who can't find a seat or would like to go downstairs, that's fine too. But again, we appreciate everyone's cooperation with these protocols to make sure everyone is safe and allow us to continue in-person meetings. So come on, Hans, you're up. Hans? Oh, you're up.
It's on, right? Okay. Hans-Jürgen Lehmann, 234 Union Street. Good evening, Council. I have addressed the Council on this topic a number of times before. Today I come to this Council meeting with some considerable trepidation. As I turn 76 this month, I am more wary than ever to attend events like this. I was double vaccinated a year ago, received my booster in August of 2021. I wear a mask whenever I go indoors anywhere, and yet I contracted COVID right after the holidays. I have been testing negative since the middle of January. My symptoms were mild. Nevertheless, my wife and I quarantined for the full days to protect her. This Council's unwillingness to provide remote access and remote participation by village residents has become unconscionable. If you are physically or mentally challenged, if you are housebound for any reason, if you are in fear of your health coming into Village Hall, then you are being denied your right to fully participate in this democracy. Excuse me. I believe that your stubbornness to be flexible on this issue is a blatant disregard of the residents of this village. At the last council meeting, Councilmember Reynolds made some remarks about the same 10 people always showing up to complain about hybrid meetings. Your statement begs the question why more of us do not show up. Let me assure you that many more people would make their voices heard, but you effectively cut them off from the participatory process. You have shut down communications, and that is just wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans.
Jan Phillips, 234 Union Street, Ridgewood. I'd like to address accessibility and very specifically the Access Committee.
Jan, I'm sorry, just start again, I'm sorry.
Jan Phillips, 234 Union Street, Ridgewood. I'd like to address accessibility, and the Access Committee. The village website with reference to access doesn't list minutes doesn't provide committee dates, log-on information, but it does say the Village of Ridgewood is committed to providing its residents and visitors with a community that is always welcoming, always inclusive, and always accessible. The director of Bergen County Human Services in 2016 acknowledged Ridgewood, saying Ridgewood was the first municipality to host a weekend of celebratory events, spotlighting accessibility and achievement of our different-abled residents who have the right to live and work in the spirit of equality within our community. Village of Ridgewood Ordinance 3533, adopted in 2016, says it's resolved that the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood does hereby create a standing committee of the council called the Ridgewood Community Access Network, CAN. Its purpose is twofold: to serve as a resource for Ridgewood families regarding disability-related issues, and to serve as a platform for addressing disability-related issues. And its organization is as follows. The chairperson is appointed by the Village Council every 2 years. A vice chair is appointed by the chairperson. A council liaison is appointed by the Village Council every 2 years. A staff liaison is appointed by the village manager, selected by the village manager every 2 years, and membership is open. The meeting schedule will be decided by the by the committee and should include monthly meetings, which would be advertised on the village website. I already addressed how none of that is available on the village website. Hybrid meetings might have been inconceivable in 2016, but in 2022, it's an inclusive means. A council member said that it's the same 10 people who keep asking. Well, I want to thank those 10 people, and I want to thank the 2 village council members who have been supportive of making these meetings accessible. To the 10 people who keep coming up here, don't be fooled by words and accusations that say
Jan,
you're
I'm
being
sorry,
bullied.
Jan. I'm sorry, Jan, but thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Siobhan Cran, Winograd, 274 Ivy Place. So I'm back to talk about something because it's unresolved. In December, I came and a series of unfortunate statements were made from the dais regarding my inquisition into the Shedler project, and I noticed that the house is back on the agenda tonight, which is a good thing because, you know, the house is moving forward. However, at the close of that meeting in December, there was an agreement amongst you that there would be a statement of clarity regarding where we were and the website would be updated. No statement of clarity exists. The website is still confusing, and sorry, but not any of my emails, which I've directed to you guys directly, have been answered. That's really unfortunate because it's a $7 million project and we're going into the budget season. And again, I'm not saying that we don't want the grant from the House, but we need to have the public understand the status of the project, that there is no comprehensive plan, and where we are. Added to that is that I think it's a good thing that we're seeking grant money. That's a great thing. No one's questioning that. But the problem you have is without the comprehensive plan, you have a beautiful house that no one can access. And now, because of this lack of commitment to accessibility, I'm nervous about the scaping that will go around the house. So there will be no parking because that hasn't been approved, and there seems to be no meaningful steps towards the comprehensive plan. So while the house is good and that part is moving forward, until you have a place to park or until you have accessibility into the road, there's no way the house is going to benefit anybody. It's going to just be there for beautification. So I really hope that you guys take the statements that you made in December, maybe that someone could respond so I don't have to come and say, hey, this is what we all agreed upon, and being bold, we all agreed there would be a statement of clarity. And two, I'm really taken aback by the meeting last week. And again, I am now nervous about a $7 million project being made accessible to those who have physical ailments. What purpose does a perfectly renovated house have if we can't get in it? And I mean by we, I mean everybody, not just able-bodied. Again, 1 in 5 Americans will be disabled at a point in their life. And the fact that this project lacks the clarity and the reaffirmation that it's going to be accessible is disappointing. So I'm hoping when this closes, before you guys talk about the house, you could address the statement of clarity that we all, like all of us in the room, agreed would occur. Thanks.
Thank you.
Siobhan, actually, Heather and I spoke this afternoon about that statement of clarity on the plan for Shedler, and she's working on it, and she just wants to put it all together, and she assures me it's going to be coming up soon.
That's, okay, can we just need to continue with the 40 minutes of public comment, and we can respond to that after. We're working on that plan, so we're good.
Yep, just
All
wanted
right?
to let you know.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a
Okay.
time frame
All
so I don't have to come back?
So let's continue with public comment. We're on a clock here for a meeting. Go ahead. Okay. Come on, Janice. So before Janice, can I just introduce you and Carolyn Holt are here from the Library Board of Trustees. So thank you, Janice and Carolyn, for being here. Go ahead.
Okay.
Janice.
Yes, I'm Janice Furman, 49 Clinton Avenue, N. I am indeed on the Board of Trustees for the Ridgewood Public Library. Just wanted to talk to you about some of the things that the library does that you may not be aware of. We have this little library of things, which is quite miraculous. It is things that you can take out of the Ridgewood Library besides books. Audiovisual equipment, light rings, microphones, camera stands, webcams. That was from a grant that we applied for. Coming in early 2022, we will have laptops and iPads and Apple Pencils that you will be able to check out of the library. The Ridgewood Foundation made us a gift of STEM kits. I wish I knew what that was, but somebody does, that you may take out. And tools, drills and bits, laser distance finders, stud finders. Who would have thought the stud finders you could take out of the library? And general technology. All of these we acquired from grants or from gifts. So that's one thing you may not know about the library. The library has been providing to the village all segments from toddlers to seniors, and it really is the little engine that could. We have done so much with very little, and we just hope that you will continue to support us and help us grow.
Okay. Thank you, Janice, and thank you for your service on the Board of Trustees, as always.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Holt, 249 Mountain Avenue. I'm also on the Board of Trustees. Can you hear me? Okay. I just also wanted to let you and the public know, although there has been a press release and it's on our website, unfortunately we didn't get the grant that we had applied for to do a renovation of the library. So now the Board of Trustees is regrouping. We already have sort of a preliminary plan, but really putting a little bit more behind it. And, you know, we welcome the public support. We're going to be holding sessions in which we solicit feedback, and we would love your support and everybody's support in the village, and we definitely want to hear what you want our library to be going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. And again, thank you for your service on the Board of Trustees.
Excuse me, Mike, I think you forgot to put your mask on.
I lost it. If you got an extra one, I was up and down, in and out of my car since 5 in the morning.
Gotcha.
And at some point,
Anybody have an extra?
thank you.
Oh, we got it. I think we got it, Janice. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. With that, we're going to close public comment and move on to the manager's report. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
Good evening. I understand that
Oh,
The council.
I need a
Oh,
name
sorry.
and address, and also, you need to really, everyone, just remember, we're all wearing masks, and it makes it that much more difficult for us to hear through the microphone, so please make sure you're speaking into that microphone. Very
Okay.
good. Name and address for the record, please.
Right, Judy Mack, 330 Eastbrook Road. I understand the council is once again voting on the pickleball court today. So I'm here to just say that it's so sad that I'm here yet again today regarding the pickleball hours when we just voted back in November on the issue. The town council put 4 pickleball courts at Glen within feet away from residential homes with not one notice to anybody and with total disregard to the homeowners. And now the town is pitching the residents against each other in this endless and senseless issue. Certain council members walked around the neighborhood for a few minutes and claim that they can't hear anything. So they tell themselves and others that it's okay to change the hours to make the seniors in town happy because they're taxpayers. They deserve to play from sunrise to sunset 7 days a week. Well, we're also taxpayers. We live here every day, and we can hear the pickleball sounds every single time the ball hits the paddle. We can't choose to live anywhere else. Why can't the council do the right thing and move the courts away? The pickleball players have many choices to play elsewhere. Glen is not the only pickleball location in town or nearby, but we only have one home to live in. So I know that me speaking here is probably useless because we've been here many times before. Certain council members here will vote the way they want no matter what is said here. I feel that because they don't care about the neighbors, and I just feel so really sad about it. It's like putting salt on a wound. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Denise.
Hi, everybody. Denise Lima, 319 East Glen Ave. I think there's been a lot of discussion about how to increase our attendance by residents at the village council meetings. Today's a pretty good turnout, but I think we could do a lot better. And I want to continue to recommend that we start these maybe earlier to get people to attend. I think the Yellow Sunshine books somehow, if they can get to people ahead of time. I think people are just overwhelmed with trying to stay up with government issues, and I think they feel intimidated by coming here. And somehow we need to bridge that. I don't know what all the answers are, but having some of this information ahead of time is probably pretty helpful. The Zoom calls have been, I think, requested a few times, but honestly, at the Board of Ed meeting this past Monday, if you tuned into it, big topic, should I wear my mask? The kids shouldn't wear the mask. So you would think there would be a pretty big turnout, and only 3 people really via Zoom commented. Now, many people might have attended, but I think what we're trying to get to is participation. So only, that's supposed to be a best practice, and only 3 people attended. And they're not social distancing at Board of Ed meetings. There was about 15 to 20 mommies there that somehow got babysitters to watch their kids. So I'm thinking they could be attending this too. So why are they attending that and not attending this, right? Just like we don't have a great turnout for voter registration either, and people that are voting. I mean, the number is really low. I just think government issues are complicated. I think people are intimidated, and somehow we need to bridge that. If you guys wish to have public comment, you have to be willing to help us to help you. And so I think there's a lot of things we can do. I've actually emailed probably 5, 6, 7 times about how to make the internet page better, how to project manage maybe Shedler better and the communications on the website under special projects. And with disappointment, not a single person has actually even said, thank you. Thank you for taking time to respond. We don't like what you're saying, or we do like what you're saying. I don't really care. but I'm not even getting a thank you from anybody. And so it's kind of hard to, I think Heather, you've been great with like some of the things with the internet and with Dylan, and we've been going back and forth, but on major things about how to like manage some of the critical things that are happening in our village, the water, Shedler, should we buy the town garage? I could probably name the top 5. I just think we could be doing a better job.
Thank you, Denise.
Good evening. My name is Simon Lee, 321 Eastbrook. I'm here in regards to, I heard that they're going to look at the hours for the pickleball courts again. And it was under my understanding that there was an agreement as to the hours of operation, but it seems like those who wish to have more convenience and to play, have more options to play, wants to change that. And while those who directly live there, where I'm right next to it, it provides a high anxiety and stress over the disruptive sound that's projected by the pickleball games. I may not be an expert in sound, but I am a credible resident that experiences directly, daily, throughout the week, the impact the sound has on my family. I feel it throughout my whole body, and that it is something just different than just taking a walk around the block and say, oh, the sound doesn't sound so bad. But to hear it constantly, or not to have control over it more than anything else. Those people who might just walk around might not feel it from day to day, from week to week. The sound is not just about the decibels or how loud it is. It's also about the pitch, and the pitch that it continuously hits that nerve. The sound that is generated continuously aggravates. You could imagine how much this could continuously affect you. When the tennis courts was changed, it not only brought in a very disruptive sound, but also amplified it, because from maybe 2 courts, you have multiple courts now. You have more people. And I don't think you could really control how many people could be there at specific given times. So how much stress, how much sound that could project, it's really felt by the people who live right close to there. Why do we live in Ridgewood? Isn't it the relationship with the community, a diverse and progressive town, the future for our children? But at the same time, for our situation, it goes against a lot of that. My daughter is a junior in Ridgewood High School, and it's one of the most important times in her academic life. Yet the high-pitched, piercing sound that keeps on coming in makes it really difficult to concentrate. And those who want the convenience of playing additional hours, that portion may not matter as much, but the future of my children matters to me very greatly. The real problem is not that, those who want to play, it's really the location, right? We haven't really done the research that how much it might affect those people around it. And I think that's really the core issue sometimes. Those that say the sound isn't that bad, they don't control how many players come, or they don't control when they come, and they don't control how frequently they might be. They can't guarantee that. And you can't always guarantee that they will use the padded pads. So.
Right. So I'm sorry, that's Simon, right? Thank you. Okay. All right. With that, we will close public comment and go on to the manager's report. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, just one second. I want to get back to Paul, Councilman Vaggiano's comment regarding Shedler. Yes, we're working on that, and we also, I believe, have some additional work that's going to be going to SHPO as well, correct, Heather? Also, one resident about pickleball suggested that tonight there would be a vote. This is, I don't know where that person went. This is not a public meeting. This is a work session, so we do not vote at these meetings. So just to be clear, this is a discussion meeting. And I think that's it. And Denise, I'm going to look for those emails because I'm not sure. Okay, very good. On to the manager's report.
Okay, the annual budget meetings will be held here in the courtroom at Village Hall on February 16th, 17th, 25th, and 28th, beginning at 5 p.m. It will be on YouTube and FiOS Channel 34. The public is welcome at these meetings where department directors explain various aspects of their budgets. The first quarter property taxes are now due. The last day to pay without interest is February 10th, and postmarks are not accepted. They must be here on that day. Payments received after the 10th are charged interest back to February 1st. Due to increased requests from our senior residents for rides to go to the Wyckoff ShopRite, we will be increasing bus rides to ShopRite to the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month on a trial basis. This service is free for Ridgewood seniors. Reservations are required to be made at 201-670-5500, extension 203. We will reevaluate this service at the end of May to see if it is providing the intended purpose. There's new programming in the Ridgewood Community Center, rocking music workshop for kids with a piano workshop. It's a new program for grades K to 1. Students will learn the fundamental concepts such as the musical alphabet, notes on the piano, and basic rhythms. The baby grand piano, which has been donated to the community center, will be the piano the children learn on. Each child will learn to play a full song on the piano by the end of their musical journey. It will start on Monday, March 21st from 3:45 to 4:30 p.m. Another new program will be offered this spring for adults at the community center. It's called Seated Tap Dance with the Joy of Motion. On Fridays for the spring session will be starting in March. Tap dance your way to better health by stimulating your brain and body. Tap shoes are helpful but not required. The 45-minute class will start Friday, March 11th from 9:30 a.m. to 10:15 a.m. You can register for these programs at ridgewoodnj.net/communitypass. The 2022 tennis and pickleball memberships are on sale and must be renewed from the prior year. If you did not receive a yellow membership badge in 2021, you must have your picture taken and badge printed for 2022 at the stable, and that can be done Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The annual community parking permits are on sale at Village Hall to both residents and non-residents for the same price. I urge you all to sign up for e-notices if you haven't already done so. This way you'll be kept informed about village events and timely notifications. All village departments will be closed on Friday, February 11th in observance of Abraham Lincoln's birthday. There will be no garbage or recycling collection, and the recycling center will also be closed. Please look at the village calendar for garbage and recycling pickup for the whole week, as holiday closures impact the whole week for these pickups. The recycling center will be open on Saturday, February 12th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Village Council upcoming meetings are broadcast from the Village Hall courtroom live on the Village website and Channel 34 on FiOS and also on YouTube. The upcoming meetings, we have a public meeting next week, February 9th at 8 p.m., February 23rd and March 2nd, we have work sessions at 7:30 p.m., and then March 9th, we have another public meeting at 8 p.m. The public is invited to join all of those meetings here in the Village Hall.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Perrin?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to say that the parties have come to terms on the Health Barn lease, and the Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres section has approved the lease, and Bergen County has also given its approval. So I'm very happy about that. Also, February is Black History Month, and I wanted to alert you to a couple of events. There's a Zoom event called Striving for Ethnic and Racial Equality on February 15th at 7 p.m., sponsored by the Committee for Peace and Justice Network. That's www.cpjnetwork.org. And Valley Hospital is also having a virtual event called Pathways, Pipelines, Participation in STEM. That's on February 9th at 3:30, and that will address causes for underrepresentation of African Americans in STEM, in the STEM workforce. The co-chair of Age-Friendly Ridgewood notified me that she couldn't come here tonight to speak, and therefore she asked that I read her email, which says, "Hello, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council members, and Village Manager. I am writing to encourage you to discuss the hybrid Village Council meeting option so that the community can understand the positive and negative perspectives. I believe that the ability to offer input at meetings remotely has enhanced the community's involvement in their government. Even before the pandemic, I found that it was difficult to convince many older adults to attend council meetings at night to offer input, as many of them do not like to be out late or drive in the dark. With the pandemic factor also in play now, I fear that input from this significant sector of our community will be small. Sincerely, Beth Abbott, co-chair, Age-Friendly Ridgewood. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Vagianos.
Thank you, Susan. Yesterday, I met with the Fields Committee, and the main topic of discussion is the state of the fields, which, because of the shortage of fields that we have in Ridgewood, many of them are in pretty tough shape, and there was a discussion about perhaps postponing the March 7th opening of the spring season. Because we have so few fields, they take a beating, and it's very difficult to maintain them. And so this incredibly dedicated group of volunteers has been working for a very long time in a game of Jenga to keep the fields together, to keep them up and operational for everyone. And I take my hat off to them, and the entire community should, because they really work behind the scenes, and they do a great job. As was pointed out during that meeting, our population here in Ridgewood is skewed towards school-age children. So even though we don't have enough fields as it is for a population of our size, because we have so many school-age children, it only exacerbates the situation. And that we are basically one big storm away from a fields collapse. And that this is something that, as we now review our master plan, we should be looking at very, very closely in order to add more field space, because if we don't, we're going to be having problems for many years into the future. On a much lighter note, and something I was very impressed to hear, girls flag football is starting this year in Ridgewood and at about 50 high schools across northern New Jersey as a varsity sport. And Keith Cook, the athletic director at the high school, said that this is a great sport and that the girls are very excited about it, and that he's watched them play at other schools. Last year there was a trial run at about 8 schools, and the level of talent is very high, and I'm looking forward to attending a bunch of these games. I think it's going to be great. On another note, I also received a letter from Reverend Joanne Van Sant that she asked me to read at the council meeting because she could not attend. Members of the Village Council and neighbors, as the pastor of the Friends to Friends Community Church, we continually advocate for accessibility for our congregants as well as the broader community of people with disabilities. Many of our community are interested in issues that impact their day-to-day living. They desire a voice in their community and the decisions that brought forth to make Ridgewood a better place. COVID-19 created an opportunity, not only for faith communities, but for every venue: education, businesses, healthcare, family celebrations. The list is endless in the ways we have all joined the digital platform. Friends to Friends still enjoys a vibrant and joyful worship online. Many in our community are still restricted in their ability to resume public life due to the ongoing COVID health concerns. We have realized, though, that when we return to worshiping together in person, we will still need a digital platform for those who may not be able to attend in person at any given time. We will be working towards creating the systems we need to ensure we are open and accessible to all who wish to worship with us. I believe that now we have the opportunity to reopen the public venue option to our village council meetings. The technology is in place as we were virtual for some time. The pandemic is still with us, and vibrant voices are not available to speak because attending in person is not an option for their own health or for someone for whom they care for or who they live with. But even as we leave the constrictions of the pandemic, as that day will certainly come, we should be advocating for community access for all at every level. Ridgewood celebrates community access for all every year for an entire weekend. Our mayor and other council members, as well as many prominent community members, lead, participate, provide financial and volunteer support so that we are able to continue our work addressing the many needs for accessibility in our village. Accessibility is more than physical barriers. It is voice, community living, and participation in events. I ask for consideration that hybrid council meetings become a reality of our vision and commitment for community access for all. I think this is a very thoughtful letter, and I urge my council colleagues to consider putting this on an agenda so we can have an open and honest discussion about the pros and cons of hybrid meetings. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilwoman Reynolds.
Thank you, Mayor. The planning board met last night. We heard a presentation from one of our planners, Beth McManus. She did a study and recommended that the planning board recommend to the council that the Valley Hospital property on North Van Deen be designated as an area in need of redevelopment. The planning board had a long discussion, and they voted actually in favor of recommending to the council to make it an area of redevelopment. So we'll come back to the council for a vote, most likely in March sometime. The next planning board meeting is February 15th. That's when Higher Gruel will be presenting the draft document of the master plan. All residents are encouraged to come and participate in this very important document that will guide Ridgewood for many, many years to come. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. The Community Center Advisory Board met on Thursday, and Heather covered a lot of what happened, so it's good to see that we got the piano tuned and that we're going to actually use that. It's been sitting down there for a while, so that's a nice thing. Also, they're looking towards spring programming and hopefully offering more in-person programming. I know that numbers in the county of COVID infections on a daily basis have gone down dramatically since just the peak two to 3 weeks ago, so it's trending in a good direction, and that's a good thing, so we can all get back together. And then the Ridgewood Arts Council also met on Thursday, and they're looking to put together a next in their series of artist talks, and there will be more information on that as we get a little bit further. And they will be looking for membership in the coming weeks. So anyone who wants to help support the arts can apply to be a volunteer on the Arts Council. And that's everything I have.
That's it. Thank you. So I'm just going to add a little bit to the Planning Board report as delivered by Councilwoman Reynolds. So the investigation, the preliminary investigation into an area in need of redevelopment for the Valley Hospital property is a report prepared by our conflict planner, and as requested by this village council, by the governing body, and the planning board did in fact make a recommendation to send it back to the village council. But an area in need of redevelopment, just so everybody understands what that is kind of like future planning. So if the property were ever vacated by Valley Hospital, no longer used as a hospital or as for the purpose of delivering medical services, down the road, that could be 50 years from now, there's a plan in place as to what can happen to that property in terms of development. And it's a really good report. It's an outstanding report, but also important to note that there was a representative from Valley Hospital there last night. They were supportive of this, and we just want to reiterate last night what we stated was that Valley Hospital has always delivered outstanding medical services as a hospital and in its future capacity as a outpatient services and other medical services. So we're grateful to Valley, and just want to let everyone know that that will be coming back to the council sometime in March. And with that,
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Heather, will the planning board meeting and the budget meetings be live streamed on Swagit?
No.
Okay.
All right. So with that, we're going to go to a presentation for Sustainable Yard and Native Plants for the new Ridgewood Water Headquarters. If everyone's not seeing how beautiful thus far it looks amazing. It's an incredible transformation already. I'm not sure. I'm sorry? I'm sorry, did somebody shout? Okay. All right. So we're going to have that presentation, Sustainable Yard and Native Plants for the new Ridgewood Water Headquarters. Here we go. Good evening. Please.
Do you want to start by...
Oh, sure.
Turn this on.
Good. Green Ridgewood has formed a subcommittee for sustainable yards, and the initiative is called Project 1,000 Acres, that we would hope to transfer 1,000 acres over to native plants in our village. And as part of that, we all were talking and we thought, what a great opportunity to showcase native plants it would be to have a garden in front of the water department. And we broached the issue with the director of Ridgewood Water, Rich Calby, and he liked the idea. And so we met a couple of weeks ago on the property, and this is what it looks like now. It's nearly finished. And so we spoke to Elaine Silverstein, who is one of the founders of the Native Plant Society of New Jersey, and she has been good enough to come up with a design for the front of the building with native plants. Elaine.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. I am not quite a foreigner. I live in Glen Rock, so I'm nearby. And I'm a professional horticulturist trained at the New York Botanical Garden. If you just take a look quickly at this building, I'm not sure if the pointer is going to work, but if you take a look at the picture of the building, which I should have made bigger, my design goes all the way across, obviously, and it's kind of balanced with a tree at either end. There are shrubs in front of the building, and then some perennial gardens in front, which I will show you in a sketch. But about half of it will still be lawn, because the thought was to start fairly small, and then the plants will make new plants, and then we will be able to increase it. Is everybody familiar with why we should plant native plants, or should I go through this
Yeah, I think you should.
There are many, many reasons why we should plant native plants and not Japanese barberry and Japanese maple and Chinese whatever, and not because there's anything wrong with those plants in Japan or in China, but here they're not native and they're not helping our ecosystem. Native plants are beautiful and they're very easy to grow. They can be hard to find. There is a native plant for any site or any soil, no matter how poor or difficult it is, and we are actually dealing with a site with very poor soil. So my recommendations are to put a thin layer of topsoil over it and then mulch, and then the plants. I've picked very, very tough plants that should do fine in this soil. Native plants are an essential part of our ecosystem. In this particular design, because it's a difficult site, it's a public site, part of it is in planters and not in the ground. You need very, very tough plants. So you're not restoring a wetland ecosystem. You're not restoring a native oak hickory forest. What you are doing is putting some plants in place that are going to attract pollinators. And if you attract pollinators and you have more insects, you're going to have birds. Basically, no native plants, no insects, no birds. So that's the rationale always for planting native plants. The care of the garden, and we discussed this at our meeting, is pretty simple. Once you put the plants in place, they will need supplemental watering for the first growing season, and probably not after that unless we have a major drought. We discussed with Rich how that will be done. If you've chosen for the right plants for the site, which I hope I've done, you should not have to water after that first growing season. In a native plant garden like this, you should never use pesticides or herbicides, and the plants you initially purchase should not be treated with systemic pesticides, which many plants are. So they should be purchased from specialty native plant growers, and wholesale large numbers of plants are pretty cheap, but these growers will not have used any kind of chemicals. The plants should never need any kind of fertilizer or any kind of soil amendment because they're tough plants and they're actually going to improve the soil as they go through their life cycles. As the garden fills in, very little weeding should be necessary because the plants will fill out quickly. And you should not clean up a native plant garden in the fall. You should wait until the spring because many, many pollinators will overwinter both in the leaf litter and actually in the stems. So you don't want to do anything until spring. So that's basic care, and once the plants are in place, it's pretty simple. I just wanted to show you this. This is a garden that it was a sample garden that I put in right in front of Borough Hall in Glen Rock. And the next year, based on this, the whole area in front of Borough Hall was planted with native plants. It shows you what the garden looked like in mid-April, the top left, when I basically put in little divisions from my garden. What it looked like in June, and then what it looked like in October. So if you start with small plants, they're going to grow real fast. It's probably not going to fill in quite as much as this the first year because these were divisions and not seedlings, which take a little longer to get going, but it's certainly going to fill in. You're going to have small plants, but they are going to fill in. Okay, this is the plan, and my graphic skills are not of the best. But what you're looking at here is the left side or the north side of the building. You can see in the middle, right toward the right side, that's a planter. And then there's a little curved area, which is the ground, which is part of the garden. So the garden will kind of sweep across. In the front, on both sides, I have spec'd one of two types of native trees, either a redbud or serviceberry, so you'll have beautiful spring flowers. If you plant serviceberry, you'll have fruit that birds are going to like very much. Kids eat it too. It's delicious. There is all the green. And the council received this table. You all have this. It's keyed, so it tells you what plants are. I just use letters to show what plants were going to go in different places. It's a sort of a semi-formal design. The plant, it's not random, but it's also not strictly formal. So it's intended to look natural. All the green plants in front are plants that will hold the ground and fight against the grass because the grass is going to encroach on the garden. That's just what it does. Actually, you can probably see it better over here. And then the next slide is the other side. Again, this is the south side of the building. When we looked at the site, there are no trees along there at all, so we decided to put a couple of trees in. And these are the plants that are spec'd for this. Again, the council has a listing with the names of the plants and what they look like and how tall they are. But there's a redbud tree at the top left, mountain laurel as foundation shrubs along the building. At the bottom left, you can see the plant with the yellow flowers at the bottom left. It's a really very, very useful native plant. It's called golden groundsel or Pachyra aurea. It has these beautiful flowers in April, but it is an evergreen ground cover. You can see the leaves at the bottom there. It's evergreen and it fights against grass. So it's great because grass will always put out rhizomes and encroach and start to take over a garden. But this fights back. It's a great plant, but it also doesn't become too aggressive. There's a little sedge, which is a grass-like plant that will be intermixed with the groundsel, and that'll be in front to make a border with the lawn. You've got a milkweed, the orange butterfly weed. You've got the columbine, which is in the red in the top level, which the whole thing is set up to be blooming from April through October. And then you'll have some of these plants will have pretty leaf color in the fall too. There's also, as I said, there are evergreens against the building. So that's really what I have. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. Questions? I don't have any questions. I'm just excited.
Good. I'm supposed to give this back.
So does anybody have questions?
You mentioned that that you recalculated the estimated costs, and I wanted to pass along these recalculations. That last page in your packet.
You could come back to the microphone, I think.
It just accounts for 2 more plants, right?
Right, to have it. Oh, I see. You know what, I'm sorry, can you come back to the microphone? Thank you, just so we can all hear you. I'm sorry. Here you go.
When I did the initial estimate, and you have to realize that the estimate, some of them are retail prices, some of them are wholesale prices, so it's going to be less than this. And I'm also sure that you have a cheaper source of mulch and of topsoil than I came up with retail. So your costs are going to be less than this. But when I did the initial estimate and sent it, I had only included I can't go back because I just gave up the little zapper, but I had only included the mountain laurels on the right, not the ones on the left. I had left off 2. So I sent a revision today that just includes those. That's the only difference.
Okay, so just
Thank you. Anything else?
So I just want to make sure nobody has any questions. Okay.
I just want to say thank you. I think this will be beautiful. I'm a big gardener myself. I will admit I don't do that many native plants, but I am familiar with almost all of these, and I have almost all of these in my garden, but I have many others as well.
They're going to become easier to get because the state just passed a law doing Jersey-friendly natives that are going to be available and hopefully available in garden centers. So they're going to start to become easier to buy retail. So thank you all.
I also want to thank you because I do not know anything about native plants, and I just learned quite a bit, and I'm really looking forward to the planting in front of the water department. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I'm also oh, you just want to run away. I was actually going to thank you as well and tell you that when I see native plants, I think I see more butterflies. I think I tend to see more of that kind of life. So thank you very much. No more questions? Okay. All right. With
All right,
that,
so all of you are okay with doing a change order because there's no funding for this. We need to do a change order to be able to do this.
all right. So anybody have any questions about the change order?
So it will be a change order for Ridgewood Water?
Correct, for the project.
Okay.
This is a change order that's totally worth it, and I'm actually excited because not only did we get an EV charging station infrastructure, but we now have native plants, so I think we're doing like a good thing here. So, yeah, we're good. We're good. Okay. All right, where are we at?
Hold on one sec. Okay, so we're on to discussion items, awarding bid for landscaping services for Ridgewood Water. In January, they accepted bid proposals. 4 bids were picked up, with 4 bids being received. They range from $226,500 for 2 years to $340,000 for 2 years. The annual bid price includes a $20,000 allowance for miscellaneous services. If there would need to be plant replacement, new landscaping, bed creation, mulching, and things like that. So the base service at the low end is actually, it's $113,250. The base service is $93,250 per year. The services will include spring cleanup, edging, trimming, debris cleanup, mowing, fall cleanup, and gutter cleaning at system locations such as wells and pump houses. So the recommendation of Mr. Calby is the award of the first year of a 2-year contract to the lowest responsible bidder, which is LTI Inc. of Montville, New Jersey, and that's not to exceed $113,250. Funding is in the Ridgewood Water operating budget.
Any questions?
Okay. The next item is under parking ordinance update. So there are several updates within this ordinance. So one is time limit parking. This clarifies that when parking in the listed areas of town that have time limit parking, such as 2 hours only, this is a 2-hour parking on the entire street for the entire day. This is to address residential parking used up all day by commercial neighboring properties. The second part, change this ordinance, clarifies the use of grab and go and complementary parking spaces, because there's been some confusion about that. The second ordinance change is overtime parking, and this is to reflect parking kiosk and park mobile as paying options. And the last ordinance change is for repeat parking, and this is to clear up and simplify the definition of repeat parking to be more concise.
Good. So I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So my first question is the grab and go. When parking, the courtesy parking spot, so you can't park there for more than 15 consecutive minutes, but there's no meter there, so how then do we gauge a violation on that, and how is that enforced? And then the second piece of that, while I'm on that, it states, no vehicle shall be permitted to idle in this spot for more than 3 minutes, and I don't understand why any vehicle should be idling for any time. And so I think that we should strike that because we have a no idling ordinance.
That creates confusion. I agree. That last sentence.
So I think we should strike the idling piece.
Apparently, they've been having an issue with that, especially in the colder weather, where cars may arrive early, and so one person gets out, they're gone for 15 minutes, and the car idles the entire time. Wow. So,
don't we already have a prohibition of,
we have an
idling?
anti-idling
Statute
We do.
in another ordinance?
So, if you want to just enforce it under that, but this makes it clear that in these spots you cannot do so.
I think we should just have a sign that says no idling. I don't think
Okay.
that, because who's going
Okay.
to time somebody for 3 minutes and then they're there for 15
Okay,
minutes
I
and then they're just
understand.
idling? And then, so the next thing is on the, how is this enforceable? Because we don't have this is a courtesy spot.
Right.
And there's no meter, so how is this enforceable? I think this came up
License
once-
plate readers.
Go ahead.
That's how. Through the license plate reader. So if they go and they pass by that area and then they go again 20 minutes later, that same car is there, it's more than 15 minutes.
Okay. All right. All right, I'm going to go on to the next section that says, deposit of money required, overtime parking prohibited, and we have, if a vehicle remains in parking spaces, let me just read this out loud. When any vehicle is parked, stops, or stands in any marked parking space in which payment is required, payment shall be made through a parking meter, multi-pay station meter, or by means of a wireless cellular communication device upon entering the parking space. Payment can be made up to the maximum allotted time. Upon payment for the use of the parking space, the space may be lawfully occupied. But then we have, if the vehicle remains parked in the parking space and the parking meter indicates the vehicle has remained beyond the period of time purchased, then the vehicle shall be considered as parked overtime. Here we go. This space shall not be deemed unpayable unless all said payment methods are exhausted and payment is not accepted. So my question on this and my issue with it is that to exhaust all methods of payment means that someone has to not only try coins, a credit card or debit card, but also an app, require them to have a Park Mobile app and fund a 35-cent fee. And I don't think that we should be saying to somebody, I think if somebody makes a good faith effort to pay and their selected payment method isn't working, what we should be doing is encouraging people to report that. But I don't think the unpayable piece of it should result in somebody having to download an app that requires them to give. A lot of people are a little skittish about that, and I don't think they should also have to pay an extra 35 cents if they want to pay differently. So I have a problem with that line.
Does everyone agree?
I think Susan makes an excellent point on that. I agree with her completely. Please alert the media.
We actually do get along.
Yeah.
No, I agree too.
Yeah, nobody should have to download Park Mobile.
Right.
If they make as she says, a good faith effort,
I will.
that's plenty.
Right.
Yeah, we'll take it out. That's okay. And then the last one is the increasing parking time. And this is payment.
Oh, that was my other
continuous.
question. So on the meter time, so shouldn't the system itself not permit somebody to do that? Because I thought that we corrected that in the system. Because I recall that we had a time when people could just go into their Park Mobile app from anywhere on planet Earth and do that and then keep repeat parking. And I thought for some reason there was a notice that you couldn't do that. You shouldn't be able to put your plate in or up the second session in that zone. It should automatically be in that.
I don't know that we have
cumbersome.
I don't know that we have that, definitely. I would have to check.
Okay. I think we should look into that because I thought we had corrected that a while ago.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I recall that as well. I thought if you were allowed to park for 3 hours, you couldn't just use your phone and then up it for another 3. And then people were playing games with, if they knew somebody, if you were working in a place and they both parked, they said, okay, let's go out and move our cars now because we only had 3 hours.
As long as that's in a separate zone.
Right.
And I think that's something you can't control, but I think that upping the 3 hour, what was supposed to have been something that was corrected in the actual system where you're paying. I thought it was.
Right, but this particular, I will check that, but this particular one is actually just to make it more concise as a definition as to what increasing parking time means.
Yeah, and I think the problem is that if a system permits someone to be, somewhere else, and they don't get back on time, let's just say they're running late, they don't get to their car on time, the system actually allows them to extend their parking past what's permitted. I almost feel like that's like a permission because we allowed them to do it. And so if we're allowing them, and then somebody comes along and they get a ticket for repeat parking, it seems a little unfair to me.
And shouldn't Park Mobile be able to send a notice to the subscriber that says, this is not allowed, you can't repeat park?
I know, that's what I have to check. It may have been corrected, I don't know.
And I don't really get the sense from this section that it's saying you may not repeat park in this zone. Is that in another section of the ordinance?
That's in the, where is it?
And I don't know if this is the same question, but I'm reading that first line of section 23. And it says, no person shall park a vehicle on any or all parts of any street identified in Schedule 19. Now, does that mean that if the time limit maximum is 3 hours, that you can't park anywhere else in the vicinity, even in a different zone?
Most of these are, it's not like East Ridgewood Avenue, okay?
I'm so sorry?
It's not like East Ridgewood Avenue. What it is like something like Commander Walk, which is near a strip mall. It's like other areas that are off of that has a commercial area near the residential area. It's Washington Place has a doctor's office, and people who work there park there all day. And so this is to prevent things like that from happening.
Okay, so in the central, I'm so sorry, in the central business district, if someone is parked on East Ridgewood Avenue.
It doesn't pertain to East Ridgewood Avenue.
Thank you. That's all I need to know.
I just want to interject that if you go back there's a schedule 265-69, schedule 19, and so that's a time limit parking. So that's actually listing out all of the roads that applies to, that piece.
Right.
So we have Beverly Road, Brookside. So these are the specific streets. So that's outside of the central business district, but that's on that list.
Got it.
Got it. Okay, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So we can bring this back if you want at the end of March, at the end of February with the changes made, and then we can discuss it again.
Okay.
Okay? All right, the next item is the declaring surplus, the award of state contract purchase upgrade, replace tough books for the police department. These are replacement tough book laptops. It's to upgrade the pre-existing police department laptops, which reach their useful life of 5 years, and therefore the patrol vehicles.
Any questions?
And it's under state contract, it's under state contract to SHI International of Somerset, New Jersey. The amount is $22,503.15, and it's in our capital account for IT.
How often do we replace these tough books? I feel very tough.
Within 5 years.
They're not too tough.
Yeah, they're not too tough.
Okay, the next one is declaring property surplus. This is from the Streets Department. These are inoperable leaf vacuums as well as 3 vehicles. They're all, many are inoperable. They are not, we can't get parts, so at this point, they are no longer able to be used by the village. We will sell them once they're declared surplus on Gov Deals.
Okay, any questions?
Okay, the next item is accepting a grant from the New Jersey Historic Preservation Trust. As you recall, the village received this grant for $499,166 for the Zabriskie Shedler House restoration. A unique feature of this grant is it reimburses for money already spent, which will be about $125,000. Once this resolution to accept the grant is officially adopted, we'll be able to submit a voucher to the New Jersey Historic Trust for the match spent funds to recoup Ridgewood's investment.
Any questions?
The next one is the budget reserve transfer. This is a resolution which is done annually. It transfers money in the 2021 budget from those departments who have extra money in their budgets to those who do not have enough money in their budgets. There is an explanation of why the transfers were necessary on the pages attached. The next item is under policy.
Heather, I'm sorry, can I
Go ahead.
just stop 1 second? I realized Janet's sitting back there, and I wanted to thank her for her work on that application for the trust fund grant. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And Connolly and Hickey, who were instrumental in recommending that we apply for it. The next item under policy is our proposed tree ordinance. I know that Councilwoman Perrin and the Shade Tree Commission and have all looked at it, have all worked hard on this. Mr. Ruddishauser helped to put it all together. It's been reviewed by Mr. Rogers as well as Ms. McWilliams, who's the municipal court administrator. And so at this point, I'll turn it over to Councilwoman Perrin.
Yes. As you know, our trees are important for a number of reasons. We need trees to protect the villages, to protect our air quality, to combat global warming, to prevent soil erosion, to alleviate flooding, to enhance the aesthetics of our village, to preserve the value of our homes. And another purpose of this proposed ordinance is to prevent clear cutting, which we have seen in the past. Other towns have submitted similar or have passed similar ordinances: Summit, Lakewood, Upper Saddle River, Edison, Cedar Grove, and that's all I know about at the moment. We first met in, well, there's a long history of this, as Councilman Seaton and the mayor know. This has been going on since, I guess, 2017, back and forth. I'm not going to belabor the history of it, but several of us, Heather, the village attorney, and the superintendent of parks, Matt Andrula, and other members of staff met in September. We looked over a draft. We made some changes. We looked at another revision, Heather and Chris and I, the village engineer. We made some changes. This is what we've also had some input from the Shade Tree Commission and from Green Ridgewood, and I want to thank Carolyn Jacoby for her work on it. And so this is what we have, and I'd like to go through it. I don't know if we'll even finish it tonight, but I'd like to get started with your comments and see what you think. The idea behind this is if a healthy tree is mature and has a diameter at breast height of 8 inches or greater, that tree is doing so much good for our environment that we would like the owner of that property or someone to replace it if they're going to take it down, to notify the village if they are going to take it down, get a permit, and provide for replacement, either on their own property or elsewhere in the village. And so the first paragraph, 260-1, explains the purpose. And if you want to follow along, this draft is in the yellow binders. Otherwise, it might be hard to follow. This states the purpose to minimize indiscriminate removal and cutting of trees upon lots. And because trees are important to avoid excessive stormwater runoff, soil erosion, and decreased groundwater recharge to our aquifers, which is where our which is where our drinking water comes from. In this paragraph, I would propose to take out the words climate change through. When I read it again, I realized it didn't make any, it threw off the meaning of the sentence. I also think aquifer supplied needs to be hyphenated. And the second paragraph goes on to say that the purpose is so that the village's tree stock will be there for generations to enjoy. I would suggest it say future generations. Does anybody else have changes or amendments to these two paragraphs?
So you want to take out eliminate, change through. You just want to say minimize the indiscriminate removal. And
Yes.
then you have just for to maintain the village's tree stock
Yes.
for future generations. Got it. Okay, got it.
Then the second section, 260-2, is the definitions section. And it defines DBH, diameter at breast height. And that's measuring the circumference at 4.5 feet from the ground and dividing by pi, essentially. Does anybody have any criticism of this definition? Great. Qualified tree is the next definition. Any tree with a diameter measured at breast height, DBH, of 8 inches or greater on any lands within the village of Ridgewood. The next definition is qualified tree expert. That's an individual who holds a New Jersey State Certified Tree Expert license or is a board certified arborist or master arborist under the International Society of Arboriculture. I find this usage of the word qualified before tree expert to be a little confusing because the first definition was qualified tree. I propose that it should say certified tree expert instead of qualified.
I think that's the way they're referred to is qualified tree experts, I believe. So I wouldn't change that.
But on the website for the certification agency, it doesn't. At no time do they use that term. So Pam and I actually. Okay, thank you. So Pam and I had actually gone through the certification site, and nowhere on the certification site do they use the term qualified tree expert. So I think that as Pam and I discussed it, we thought that it's better to use the term that the certification agency is using so that there's no confusion.
In the statute, it uses the term licensed tree expert.
Right,
I'd be happy with that.
Right. So I mean, I don't know. I just think that if we say qualified tree expert, and the two terms they're using are licensed or certified, we should probably stick with those terms just so to avoid any confusion.
Yeah, I think so. So I'd like to put licensed. The next definition is replacement tree. Any tree proposed to be considered as replacement for a qualified tree removal under a permit. I think one of the failings of the other attempts was that we tried to dictate what the replacement tree would be. And we didn't want to do that this time around.
So can we just go back to one thing, because I just want to ask you and Mike something. So on the 8-inch DBH, why is it 8 inches and not 6 inches? Because a tree to get to 6 inches takes years. And so a tree that's 6 inches DBH is like a pretty big tree too. And to say that, I mean, it would seem like a better option to me anyway, that if we're trying to avoid the indiscriminate clear cutting of trees, I almost feel like a 6-inch is almost more critical, because to get even there, it takes like what? How many years? I don't know. Seems like a long time. No?
Why was 8 inches chosen?
Yeah,
I think it's to be a little less onerous on the residents. So, there's a lot of exemptions here. So if you're dead, diseased, dying, they're endangered a structure or anything like that, like for any legitimate reason, and the tree would have to come down, you wouldn't have to replace it. You wouldn't be held to this ordinance. I mean, you could get, New York City has an incredibly onerous tree protection ordinance. And they have a calculation as the tree goes up in diameter every few inches. When I was a reporter in Staten Island, I wasted a lot of time on a story that never got published because nobody ever wanted to go on the record. But what happened was there's a developer who built all these condominiums on this street in Staten Island, and they decided to change up the plan, and they moved the driveway. And there was this massive, massive tree. It was probably bigger than 64 inches. So the Parks Department in New York City wanted to charge them, based on their calculation, $320,000 to cut the tree down, so it wouldn't be in the middle of the driveway. So, I mean, you could do calculations, like this is a 1-to-1 replacement, so no matter how big the tree is, if it's healthy and it falls under this ordinance, it's a 1-to-1 replacement. It's not that onerous. I mean, you could follow that method and use a calculation, and as trees go up, the price of cutting them down could go up, or the replacement. I think, again, nobody wanted to go on the record with it, but the resolution to that whole issue was the developer had to plant 90 trees on another street somewhere in Staten Island. And I guess they were able to get the 90 trees cheaper than $320,000, and everybody was fine with that.
No, I think that's a good point, Mike. We obviously want to take care of our tree infrastructure, which is my new favorite term from the presentation we got last month. By the same token, we don't want it to be overly onerous on residents when they're doing something to their property. So I understand that whether it's 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches, it is a random number, but 8 inches sounds like a reasonable view of this.
Right, and again, you don't want as much pushback as the last time too. So you want to make it easy. There's even an exemption for you got one tree a year.
We'll get to that. I did want to
just a quick question. Is there? I assume there's going to be no cost for this permit, or
right now it's $50.
The schedule of fees are on that page.
But it's $50 for whether it's one tree or 50 trees. But then it's $500 per tree after the first tree.
Well, that's if you want to plant it elsewhere in the village.
Right.
So if you don't want it on your property, you would have to, basically pay what we pay. So right now it costs about $500 to plant a street tree in the village of Ridgewood. So if you were to cut down a tree on your property and you didn't want any more trees, then you would just basically have to pay into a trust fund. that, we'd use later on during the next planting season to plant a street tree somewhere, or a tree in a park, or wherever we would put a tree.
I did want to say that in the statutes from other ordinances from other towns that I looked at, some set the limit at 4 inches at DBH. Others set it at 16 inches. And so I think 8 inches really is the happy medium.
It's the middle of the road.
Yeah, and I will also point out another town, at least one of them, doesn't charge anything for the permit.
We didn't originally.
Originally,
right?
we didn't.
We didn't. I thought because we didn't because we wanted to encourage people to get the permit so that we could at least understand where the cutting was happening, and I think it was helpful just to keep track by not requiring that. But
though requiring a permit, you would still be able to keep track. They still have to report, they still have to put in an application.
Yeah, I think we did it when we said we didn't charge anything was because we wanted to encourage people to actually come and get the permit.
Yeah.
So
I'm not averse to that. I would be willing to consider that $50.
But why don't we just keep going in order?
Yes. Okay. In section 260-3, responsibility of owner or tenant, notice. These 3 paragraphs, A, B, and C, address the situation when brush, vegetation, really of any kind, is growing into an intersection or too far close to an intersection that obstructs views of drivers and that sort of thing, and the notice procedure whereby the village can tell the homeowner, you must cut it back, and so that's really not dealing with planting of trees or cutting down trees. And in paragraph A, 3rd line down, which starts with the word stick, I think it's supposed to be the word stock. And in paragraph B, the last sentence says something like the homeowner can send a written reply to such notice within 5 calendar days of the receipt of such notice, why the demands therein cannot be complied with. The school marm in me says, don't end a formal document, a sentence in a formal document with a preposition. So I would say, why the demands therein cannot be met. And that's the only suggestions I have for these 3 paragraphs in 260-3. Does anybody else have any comments or amendments? Okay.
Good.
Let's go on.
I'm sorry, I have one. So I'm just curious. So the brush is within 10 feet of the roadway. So if somebody has like hedges on their property that go to the sidewalk, which is only, say, 6 or 7 feet from the roadway, if those hedges, if you're driving down the road, if they don't impede vision, that's one thing. But if somebody's pulling out of a driveway and they impede your vision, is that different from driving down the roadway?
Yeah.
Can you answer that, Matt?
Yeah, that, in terms of what the ordinance is trying to do, that would be different, Lorraine. And what we're really worried about, I think, as you know, is intersections and where it gets into the sight distances and trying to prevent that. And then again, it's only upon notice from the village where it becomes a concern, because when it becomes an issue, then then enforcement would understand that these particular shrubs have to be taken down to 2.5 feet, to a height of 2.5 feet, and that's when they'll receive a notice. So it's not everybody who's got a shrub or some type of plantings within 10 feet of the right-of-way. It's only that which is probably going to in any way obstruct sight distances for travelers on the roadways, and then the need to have receipt of a notice from the town first before any action has to be taken.
Matt, doesn't this already exist?
Yeah, I mean, this
Yeah.
is
This
this
is
is something that
reiterating what already
we
exists.
require the intersections to be clean of sight, anything that might obstruct the sight distance anyway. So we already do this, but
I mean, I would almost like to see, because there are areas in town where people have hedges, and you literally can't see you can't see the sidewalk. So you can't see a child walking down the sidewalk, or you can't see somebody riding, if they are riding a bike on the sidewalk, which they're not supposed to.
Actually, you're allowed in the state of New Jersey.
Oh, you are, to ride. I mean,
You're allowed to ride your bicycle on the sidewalk in New Jersey. Just point of clarification. that's
I
all.
mean,
You're allowed to.
I would like to see us have something. If people have hedges that are so large at the end, kind of at the border of a sidewalk, and you're not able to see, if you're pulling out of your driveway and you're not able to see the sidewalk, I don't know.
So
Well-
how would we word that? Because, how would you word that? Because you're saying, so somebody has 4-foot shrubs, and they're coming out of their driveway, and obviously that's an obstruction, so they can't see pedestrians or bicyclists or anyone. They actually can't even see probably cars coming up the street in reality.
Exactly.
So they have, in order to have a sight line of who's coming down the sidewalk, the whole front end of the vehicle or back end, so you almost have to be all the way out the driveway, so you really can't see. So how would you even frame that? And is this relevant? I don't think that's in here yet.
that's not. I don't believe that's the way this reads. However, I don't think it would prevent because it determined to be necessary and expedient for the preservation of the village's tree stock while addressing issues of public safety. So we do have that catch-all phrase about addressing issues of public safety. It's just, it's something with regard to something that's on their personal property. Again, we're going to, need to know about the safety issue and have some definition of what that safety issue is going to be. So you would hope that if the town becomes aware of something like that, that is a property owner who could get a notice to keep those cut low. So I don't know how much of that exists in this town where it's an impediment for people backing out of their own driveways. Obviously, common sense, you would hope, would dictate how people operate through their property and make sure that they've got the ability to properly traverse or at least get onto the roadways with their car. But at the same time, you're not going to be able to prevent everything, but you would hope that if we knew about it, we would make sure that those people got a notice.
I mean, sometimes people have mirrors at the end of their driveway too, so they can see, right?
Mhm.
They have those things up in a tree, so I don't know.
If there's a tree there.
Okay. Go ahead, Pam.
Okay. If we look at section 260-4, cutting or removal of a tree, this is the guts of the ordinance. This is the basic operative section. And before we get into it, I will say that there are exceptions for dead and dying trees or hazardous trees, and so we'll get to that eventually too. So the way we conceived of this was that paragraph A would pertain to private property, and paragraph B would be the attempt to cut trees on public land. And so I hope we got it, but let's talk about it.
So we should insert into A, because it simply states, no person, property owner, hired firm, or other entity shall cause to be cut or remove qualified tree upon any lands within the village of Ridgewood. I think we should insert right there, public or private, because this way it's clear what you're stating.
But you see, if you add the words public or private, then people are free to cut down trees on public land up to 8 inches DBH. That's what I'm afraid of. That's why we broke it into 2 parts, because we didn't want anybody cutting trees on public lands of any size. You don't have license to cut down a 2-inch DBH.
But the way it's written, right now, it allows for that, so then you need to change this, you have to insert private into this, because right now, it states upon any lands within the.
I think maybe you're right, that on any private lands would do the trick.
Right, so why don't we
Privately owned.
insert, so, can you write that in there? Okay.
In A.
Any private lands.
Mhm.
Oh, good. Yeah, probably.
And then in paragraph B, it reads, "No person, property owner, hired firm, or other entity other than employees of the Village of Ridgewood shall cause to be cut or removed any existing tree or trees upon any of the public lands of the Village of Ridgewood, unless the Director of the Department of Public Works or their authorized designee has issued a permit to do so." I think there is a way that, a person could volunteer to help the village and do some cutting, and there are all kinds of waivers that have to be signed, and that might be what this refers to. Chris would be able to address it better, but this is the way he has worded it.
I think the question is, under what circumstances would somebody issue a permit to do so?
Under what circumstances would the village ever give anybody permission?
Right, I think that's.
I think this is so clear on its face that all it says is, you can't cut down a tree on village-owned property, period.
And I think it might be best to end it at that point.
I'm willing.
Okay, so you just can't cut down a tree.
Unless the Director of the Department of Public Works has issued a permit to do so. So maybe there's a circumstance that we can't think of right now, but without that permit, you can't do it.
Without knowing that circumstance or that experience that the Director of Public Works may have had, if Chris was here, he might be able to tell us one or two of those instances. So why don't we just check with Chris? If he doesn't know of any instances, and maybe leave it out. If he knows that there are some exceptions, then you can leave the wording in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Other restrictions. This is section 260-5. And these are pretty much a list of things you can't do to trees, and a little bit more. My first thought is in paragraph E, but does anybody have any comment or objection to paragraphs A, B, C, and D?
No, I think, again, all this exists, I believe.
Yeah. Paragraph E, there's a line that says, "No person shall permit or cause to be permitted the discharge or release of any liquid, gas, or solid compound containing injurious chemicals to come in contact with the stalk, leaves, bark, or roots of any tree or shrub within the public right-of-way." And the mayor questioned, what is the definition of injurious chemicals? Is that unduly vague?
Hazardous, maybe a better.
Well, I think hazardous actually is a term of art, as you know. Injurious would appear to me to say anything that would injure that tree. Right. And again, I think that we can read too much into these things. It would appear, and again, certainly lawyers make a lot of money reading too much into these things, but I think that this is pretty clear on its face.
Okay, I'm good.
Hope that doesn't mean little my feet. But
I'm okay with it. I just wanted to.
I think if maybe we just change the wording to gas or solid compound containing any chemicals that may be injurious or damaging to come into contact with the stalk leaves that
I think that has to say to that. I think that's exactly what it needs to state. So that's the right change to the wording.
What is it?
So then after containing, I can write it up, but any chemicals that may be injurious or hazardous to come into contact with stalk, leaves, bark, or roots of any tree. And you can
I wouldn't
maneuver
use
those-
hazardous, because hazardous in connection with trees often means that there is a target that can be a building or a person
You
that
can
can
play
be
with those
hurt.
words the way you want. If you don't think hazardous fits, fine, but at least you're saying that you're working your way out of defining the chemicals other than saying that they're going to be injurious or damaging to the tree.
Okay. All right, so we're going to change that language. And then in F, this says, during the execution of any work on trees in the village of Ridgewood other than for a tree's removal, no gaffs or spikes shall be permitted to be used to ascend a tree by a climber. What we need to add here, that's in all the other ones, is this refers to trees in the public right-of-way. Or maybe it should be trees on public lands. That would be more inclusive, wouldn't it?
I think it should say public lands, because I don't know how you enforce that somebody can't, people use those spikes to climb a tree, and sometimes people do it to just trim branches. Sometimes homeowners do that, and I'd be a little bit concerned that is just not something that is enforceable.
And to that end, what about to remove a limb?
That's
yeah.
Yeah, just to remove a limb, and somebody
Yeah.
wants to do it a little bit more safely, so they're using those, are they like shoes or something with spikes or something, right? So I just think that we should make sure that it's not on public property, but on private. I think it should be public.
Right. And all the other ones are public right-of-ways. This whole section, 260-5, is only regarding public trees.
Right, it's
And
the
as the
only
mayor
one.
pointed out, it's just been left out in,
But I think the language should include limb for removal of a limb in addition to the tree's removal, because you could have a limb that's been damaged and is now dangerous, needs to be removed.
So, but it says execution of any work on trees other than for trees removal. So what other kind of work do we think? Maybe they're trying to get rid of the
That's trimming.
tree caterpillars.
No, you're
they're
right.
harboring?
You're right. I misread it.
Paul's issue is covered.
Right, so that's,
No, you're right.
that's there.
No,
So
you're right.
all
It's good.
Okay,
Yep.
good. All right, we're good.
okay. I have no suggestions with regard to G or H. Does anyone else? This H, I'll just point out for people who are listening. H is the planting in the village, it should say village of, no, I guess, the
Doesn't-
planting in the village of running bamboo, known as Philostachys aureosulcata, or any bamboo of such genus shall be prohibited. That's because it's very invasive and runs into your neighbor's property, causes all kinds of damage and problems.
I'm going to go back to G for just a moment.
Yep.
And I'm going to raise the issue that Lorraine raised, because it says, and unless I'm misreading, to alter or prune any tree within the public right-of-way. I mean, if there's a tree whose limbs are now causing some kind of a visual hazard, don't we want that to be pruned?
But if it's in the village right-of-way, they have to contact the village to get it down, and that's usually what happens.
Also, this is qualified by the phrase that you can't do it in such a way as to reduce its viability or lifespan.
It doesn't
So-
say it can't be done. Right, it has to, it just says
Okay.
it has to be done correctly,
Good.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Let's wait, let's just read that one again. Hang on. It is prohibited to alter or prune any tree within the public right-of-way or the conditions surrounding a tree. So that means you can't touch the mulch or anything, and those are the conditions surrounding a tree in the public right-of-way in such a manner which may reduce its viability and lifespan. So we're good.
So you actually can
if you have a
trim
dangerous
it.
branch,
Yep.
as long as you don't do it in a way
Yep.
that damages the tree. Okay, got it.
Does that mean, does this allow it in parks? I mean, the public right-of-way, doesn't that refer to roads?
Well, the public right-of-way is the area that's adjacent to the road. It wouldn't pertain to parks.
Do we
Parks-
want to,
Yeah. Do you want to include that there?
should we say on public lands?
And I think
It's
you ought
broader.
to make it as, in,
I think we should keep it as the row, or actually use the term verge, because that's the appropriate term for, I think we should use.
I was going to say you should make it as inclusive of public property as you possibly can.
Yeah, I'm afraid that all in the Dunham Trail, people go in there and start hacking things off.
No, we should make it clear that we're talking about the public right-of-way, or that's the verge, right? That's the term.
Yes, it could be, but what about all our other properties?
Wouldn't that better go in section 260-4B, where we talk about public lands, and we could just amend it to say, where it says, to be cut or removed or pruned any existing trees upon any public land.
Oh, maybe you're right. It says you can't cut a tree on public land in B, so maybe that covers it.
I mean, and you could make that more, I mean, you could cover it better by throwing the term pruned in there, but I think that that's the section where that would go best.
So what are we doing with G? Because we have there in such a manner that may reduce its viability, so we're permitting it, but so how are we reconciling that? I'm confused. It's easy with trees.
Well, if you restrain the cutting or removal of any tree, you're certainly going to cover anything that might change or disrupt the viability of a tree. So I think the more general wording in B would cover that anyway.
So do you want to update B?
What you may want to, I mean, what I think that would mean if you take that out or just take care of G, it is covered by B up top.
Not entirely, because G prohibits doing something deleterious to the conditions surrounding a tree, not just cutting it, but like you can't pour bleach on the soil all around the tree.
Right. Well,
and that's not addressed in B.
Well, that's already covered in E, no?
Yeah, that's covered in E.
Yeah,
actually.
I guess so. But there are, I'm trying to think of other things you could do.
We may not solve it right now. It's something to look at. Why don't we just move on? We'll see if we can get that through.
But I just want to say that I find what Pam is saying to be accurate, because when we talk about the conditions surrounding a tree and we say like pouring a chemical on something, but there are other things you can do to the conditions surrounding a tree. And I am not a green person. I always like to remind everyone. But if you plant ivy, or that could choke a tree. Mm-hmm. If you put gravel instead of proper mulch, you could maybe not have the moisture held in or something. I'm not sure.
But you know what? Carolyn Jacoby is here from the Shade Tree Commission, and she may be able to tell us if there are other things you could do to the conditions surrounding a tree that would affect its viability.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's, hi, it's getting a little, we're getting a little into the weeds here. So tell me exactly what your question to me is.
We're considering a provision that prohibits somebody from altering the conditions surrounding a tree that would in any way reduce its viability.
Of the municipal tree?
Yeah, in the
this
public
only
right-of-way.
has to do with,
on the verge.
Public lands. What would you do?
We were just thinking about putting rocks all around the bottom of it.
That's not going to do. If they start peeling the bark off of a tree, that's going to damage
That's not a surrounding condition. Though.
Surrounding the tree, you might not put cement around the base of the tree.
Right.
That would constrict future growth and kill the tree. So you don't want anybody. I don't know the problems about people doing anything. I don't mind if the municipal trees on streets, people will plant around the trees. Generally, you don't want anything, if you want to control what people do. You don't want the mulch that the landscapers
Yeah,
create
right.
volcanoes,
Piling it on the stem.
and that kills the thing. I mean, if we could restrict how the landscapers apply the mulch, that might be, but it's really very hard to do, except now that we are having our arborists oversee plantings and the proper way to mulch. But
still, this is after the landscapers have gone. And
yeah, but
so-
but again, this is not affecting municipal trees.
But-
If people want to mulch their trees that are in front of their house, then we would, I don't know how you can control for people applying mulch properly.
But it does sound like this wording, conditions surrounding the tree, is worth keeping in. That's how I read it.
You know, I actually think that what we should say is that it should be prohibited to alter the conditions surrounding a tree in the public right-of-way, period. And the reason I say that is we had the tree wells downtown, and all the trees were there, and I guess we had soil and such, and then the big white rocks were thrown in, and then the rocks were all over the sidewalk, and it became a tripping hazard, a falling hazard. So I almost feel like we should say you shouldn't alter the tree surround in any way, period. Because if thank Nancy's shaking her head, so I must got it right, because if we have people going out and planting trees, and they set something in place to make sure the tree is viable, then what we should be saying is, don't touch it. Don't touch it, don't add to it, don't do anything. Let us maintain the trees and the surround. So I'm okay with saying that it's prohibited to alter or prune any tree in a way that reduces its viability and lifespan, because there's, it's a little bit open to interpretation, but I think that we should say the surround should remain as is, because this way we avoid any issues.
I agree.
I'm sorry, are you saying that the tree wells in the Central Business District, no one can plant plants and flowers and such there? Because that's something we're trying to encourage store owners to do. So when you say they can't do anything decorative there, sometimes it'll include a couple of decorative stones. I don't think we want to go down that road.
But I think the way it's written, it just says to reduce the viability or lifespan of the tree. So if you're going to plant flowers at the base of the tree, that's not going to kill it or reduce its lifespan.
If that language is included, I'm good with that. But
It's
otherwise,
right
it's.
I don't think we should touch G then.
Yeah.
I think it's good the way it is.
I like it the way it is, too.
Yeah, I think it's
good
fine.
we
Again,
discussed
I think we can, as Carolyn said, we can get into the weeds too much, and we can overthink this. Okay. So we don't want to. And look, this is not something that's set in stone forever. If we saw we had a problem, we can always modify it going forward. This is a pretty stringent ordinance. We can't think of every possibility. This covers an awful lot of them, though.
Okay, we're good with G, it's fine. The rocks drove me crazy, but okay.
Okay. I starts with, decorative lights shall not be hung or affixed in any tree within the public right-of-way or on public property for a period longer than 3 months continuously. No electric cords or wiring shall be permitted to encircle the trunk of a tree within the public right-of-way. Residents seeking to string lights in such trees shall obtain a permit for such from the engineering division for the purposes of documenting the time lights are hung in the tree. Decorative lights installed in trees as part of a village-sponsored or approved project shall be exempt from this permit requirement. So the mayor and I were talking for a while about this one, and the 3-month period is kind of hard to enforce, but if they have to come for a permit, well, then you know when it started. but this whole permit process can get cumbersome. So I don't know, how do you all feel about it?
I would just get rid of it, because lights kill trees, period. They need dark, period, and they need light. And if you have lights wrapped around them and they're on all night long, and in the public right-of-way, I mean, if you want to decorate for Christmas on your own property, you could do whatever you want to do, but you shouldn't be decorating a street tree. Or restaurants and businesses downtown shouldn't be tightly wrapping lights around the trunks and branches of their trees and letting them blaze all night long until the tree is dead, and then they say, oh, why is our tree dead?
Yeah, the heat kills them.
I agree with you. That was our
not.
feeling at first, but then we were thinking about, oh, it's so pretty in December when it's gray out and all that. But
It costs
I'm with you.
$500 to replace a tree.
It's a burden on the village to police it, and
That's the
it's
other thing.
detrimental to trees, and we had to think of words about encircling, and let's just take it out. It'll just read, oh, and I forgot to say, Lorraine, are you on board with that? And
I'm confused.
Paul?
Are we talking about, because I know so many people that have lights in their backyard.
Well, no, that's
No, we're talking
it's
about
right-
public
We're just
trees.
talking public.
Yeah, like
trees. Well, this
downtown or in
says-
parks or in the street. So public,
Yeah.
I think that we should say.
It says on public property.
Right, only on public
Oh.
property.
Not private.
Private,
Yeah.
okay.
So I think we should actually keep I and simply state,
no lights.
no decorative lights permitted on any public tree at all, period, because.
Public property, okay.
Public pro-
Period
right.
after public property, and the rest
However
comes
you
out.
wanna
What
word it.
about the Christmas tree?
That tree's already dead.
That tree's done.
That tree is cut down
Well,
and it's stuck
well,
in a
you know,
manhole.
you say that, but the one on the west side train station
Right,
is not.
correct.
All right,
Or
but
the
so
one
what-
in
so-
Tenant,
The
or the
village
one
is
All right.
at
exempt from
Memorial
all
Park.
its own ordinances.
So you want to just say, no decorative lights are strictly prohibited on any public trees, and with the exception of village-sponsored or approved projects, those shall be exempt from this requirement, whatever, however.
And do we, and here, I will absolutely defer to the rest of the council on this one. I know that some stores like to put some lights on their trees at Christmas. I think it's a nice thing. Nobody leaves them up. And again, if you guys don't want that, I'll go along with that. But like I said, it's just not a lot of guys do it, but it's a nice little thing. Nobody leaves their Christmas lights up, beyond the middle of January. So just a thought. And it's easy to enforce because it's in the central business district. So
I mean, it does look so pretty, but I know there was a time, and I remember Chris saying he was cutting, they had to cut the lights because the tree grew and the lights were actually embedded. I think we lost
That
trees
doesn't
over
happen.
it.
That doesn't happen in 3 months.
yeah, it doesn't have it does. And again, this is a very restrictive ordinance. I'm good with the vast majority of it.
So wait, Paul, to your point, though, if we say that the decorative lights shall be permitted for village-sponsored or approved projects, those will be exempt, then we can ask those folks if they want to put those lights in during that time, and as long as it's like a village-sponsored downtown for the holiday kind of project, maybe that's how we get a workaround on that. This way, because I don't disagree, I think we're trying to avoid the ongoing issue. I think that's what we're trying to avoid.
So I would propose that it now reads, decorative lights shall not be strung or affixed in any tree within the public right-of-way or on public property, period. Next sentence, skip down. Decorative lights installed in trees as part of a village-sponsored or approved project shall be exempt from this section.
We're getting a little deep here. Is that really part of a village-sponsored project? When somebody wants to put Christmas lights on.
Well, we'll call it downtown for the holidays, so we call it, Shop Ridgewood or something.
I don't know.
We'll make it a village project.
The 3-month provision really kind of covers that. I really believe that. And again, if we saw that this became a problem, we can always amend it.
Right. I don't want you to make it too difficult for shop owners who want to just decorate a tree outside their shop to go and do it, where they would have to go through a whole process.
Yeah, but that's what killed the trees. That's a lot of trees died over that.
If it killed the trees, that means they had the lights in there. They never took the lights off. There's no way in 3 months.
And again,
a tree
enforcing
is
it's
going
pretty
to grow.
easy. If somebody's still got their lights on there in March, it's a problem.
Let's just type this one up in the way we just did, and let's think about it, because I feel strong. I mean, I'm going to defer to Mike, because I believe that I always understood two things killed the tree: the heat from the lights and the length of time because the tree grew around. And I think it's going to be difficult to enforce this whole 3-month thing. I just think that it's much easier to enforce if you say we don't do it, but in the event of like the holiday decoration for those couple of weeks, it's easier. I think that makes it easier to enforce.
And from a shop owner's point of view, oh my gosh, they're going to make me file another permit?
Yeah, really.
Well, we won't have to do a permit. We could just, say that this is the village, holiday event, and so the lights are permitted for these couple of weeks, like from downtown to the holidays until whatever, January 6th, whatever date.
First week of January, something like that.
Yeah, put some dates on it if you want.
Okay.
Something.
Pam has it under control. You have it under control?
So you want me to leave it this way so we can come back to it? Sleep on it? Okay. Okay. The next section, 260-6, this is a little more tangential. It's not really about cutting trees down. It's more about construction, reconstruction, and so I have no problem with, now there are 4 paragraphs here. I would first propose that we call them A, B, C, and D, so that if there's a violation, you're going to have a citation to a specific section. Anybody agree or disagree? Okay. And for A, this is saying if you're going to be doing construction or reconstruction within the public right-of-way, the party responsible for the work, the adjacent property owner, shall coordinate all work that may affect the root system of trees within the public right-of-way, that is, the ones on the verge, with the village's arborist or their designee. Such responsible party shall be required to notify the village arborist prior to the commencement of any work. Isn't that what we have in place right now?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. So I would leave it the same.
Yeah.
Okay. And then B would be no tree root or roots shall be cut or removed for sidewalk construction, reconstruction, or driveway enlargement within the public right-of-way, without first obtaining written authorization from the village arborist. The village arborist shall provide any requested documentation regarding same to the engineering division for the curb and sidewalk permit. Said authorization shall be appended to either the zoning review of the proposed work or a curb and sidewalk work permit issued by the engineering division. I'm a little confused by authorization. How's that differ from a permit?
I think, I didn't write this, but when I read it, I think what you meant to do was that if anybody does any work or sidewalk replacement, they need a permit for it. As part of that process, if there's any trees near there, in order to get the work done, it's got to be reviewed by the arborist, and the arborist has got to sign off okay on it in terms of what work's going to be done so that it doesn't disrupt the root system.
Right, because this is here to give the arborist authorization to save the tree. So what happened before any of this existed, if somebody just didn't like the tree, and if they're redoing their sidewalk and they could do a bump around and bump out and save the tree, then that's what they should do. But if they didn't like the tree, they would just argue with the town until the town just finally said, I really don't have any authority, and they caved, and then the people would have the tree cut down.
And most
so
of the
this
time,
gives the authority to the arborist to say, you can't argue with me because I have the final say on this, and you have to do the bump out and save the tree, period. And there's no more argument. Nobody could.
Right, and I agree that's what they want to do, is we want to get them involved as early as we can. The problem is, and I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of the time, you don't know what the root system is underneath the sidewalk until you lift it up. So there has to be, it's almost like a staging that you have with I have to talk to Chris about how that would work, but you want to make sure that gets looked at before anything is cut. And it's just, that's the most important part of what this is attempting to do.
I think that on that last line on B, said authorization shall be appended to either the zoning review of the proposed work or a curb and sidewalk work permit issued by the engineering division. You need a permit to enlarge a driveway, so we should add that to that last line.
Okay, so tell me what words are going where.
So you see on what we just lettered, I just lettered B, the second paragraph, Pam?
Yeah.
So if you're looking at it, no route shall be cut or removed for sidewalk construction, reconstruction, or driveway enlargement. And then at the end, it says that the authorization shall be appended to either the zoning review of the proposed work or a curb and sidewalk permit. We should say, we should add in that the driveway, a driveway enlargement and after proposed work.
Okay, so comma after proposed work?
Yeah, I think because, proposed work presumably covers all of it, but for some reason, it's listed separately as curb and sidewalk work, but you need a permit and a zoning review on a driveway enlargement based on coverage.
Okay, so you want me to
right?
put in the words, or driveway enlargement?
Correct.
Where?
Because you need a permit, so you need a permit on all of that.
You need a permit to enlarge your driveway. So in the last line of the paragraph, where it says sidewalk work permit,
Yep.
that should be applicable to a driveway enlargement.
Right, thank you.
So you want me to put in or driveway enlargement after the words sidewalk work?
Yes.
And I have a question about sidewalk reconstruction. So what happens when there's a sidewalk that has heaved dramatically and created an unsafe sidewalk? And it's clearly because of the route, and I don't know, what happens under this?
Well, then the village arborist would have the authority to look at it and say, you know what, there's no way around it. If you have to cut this route to put the sidewalk down, and it's going to kill the tree, so you have to take the tree down. So, but that would be up to the arborist to determine at that point. That's why it gives them the final authority on trees during sidewalk replacements.
So, but I think to Paul's point, sidewalk construction, in my opinion, means new sidewalks. Sidewalk reconstruction means I'm taking out the old sidewalks, putting in new.
Sidewalk construction can include just the raising or the lowering of a sidewalk slab.
So that could be a repair.
Because that happens sometimes as well.
Right.
That gets approved. These either get generated because the town becomes aware of a condition where there is upheaval or a distance or deviation in the sidewalk slabs, or in a house sale where a buyer requires a seller to clean up that sidewalk because I don't want to get that when I own the house. So kind of comes from those things, and the permits have to be requested. I think we got to talk to Chris about the process, because I think most of the time somebody goes out and takes a look at these things to make sure what's involved in this and how extensive it's going to be. And once that happens, I think that's the way, from a procedural standpoint, that's the way that it works. But we just got to get some more detail from Chris. But to your point about, what happens, how's that going to work, the arborist has got to that's what we're trying to do, is get the arborist involved there as quickly as possible.
I think it's in the next paragraph.
Yeah.
Those deal with it in the next paragraph? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. C, or what we're going to make into C, gives the arborist the final authority, the sole authority to determine whether there should be root grinding, tree removal, a round out or a bump out, and with the goal of preserving the trees in the public right-of-way as best as possible.
And I have concerns about this. Anyone who has ever applied for a permit to do anything where something is in the sole authority of a person, that person might be overly zealous about the protection of an absolutely stunning tree that is hundreds of years old, and now we are all stuck with a sidewalk that is not the kind of sidewalk that we want to be walking on. So I think there has to be some language in here that that curbs the sole authority of the arborist, something to the effect of, if it is to alleviate a hazard, that is, that would be allowed.
And I'll discuss that with you. I kind of disagree with you, Paul, because we're talking, and what this is meant to do is deal with the viability of the trees. If you have a 200-year-old copper beech hanging out by the sidewalk, and you're trying to figure out a way to get the sidewalk in and around it, you're going to have to come up with some type of a plan so you don't disrupt that tree.
And I'm good with that.
I understand. So who is it that's going to decide about the viability of the tree? And if the arborist is really the only one who can, and you want to bring in other factors, how are you going to define when to bring in those other factors? And that's a problem.
Well, right now, there's nothing in here. Let's see.
The arborist or its designee, I don't know who else can make a determination, but the hard part is trying to define what all those factors are that you're looking for to be considered. And who's to make that decision? And is there any way of not making it, your worry, your concern is that it's a subjective decision. Is there a mechanism in place or a process in place that can take out that subjectivity to the point where if somebody's overzealous, you got an overzealous building inspector, that word gets back, and that gets to be something you got to deal with in terms of personnel. But
if anyone has ever applied for a permit, they have probably dealt with some overzealous permit issuer somewhere along the way, and the term sole authority is a dangerous piece of language. Perhaps someone who is more familiar with these things than we are could come up with some parameters to deal with this, because as I said it, I'm sure everyone here can envision that sidewalk that has been heaved beyond repair. And so, again, all I'm saying, that's all I'm really looking at is, a difficult situation.
Yep.
Well, I tend to want to trust in our professional staff, but I'm willing to go back and look at some of these other ordinances for parameters under these circumstances. Some of these other ordinances are incredibly detailed. If you all are bored now, take a look at some of these other ordinances.
I think the conversation with Chris and those that have been dealing with this so far would be helpful in terms of trying to work out that issue, Paul.
Absolutely.
So I have two questions. So I actually agree with Paul. I think we should just take the word sole out and just say they have the authority. I think that sole authority sounds so harsh.
I'm willing to take sole out.
Okay, so let's
It's
take
redundant.
sole. And then I have a question on that last line. Sidewalk slabs, and I'm going to go back to the Paul's heaving sidewalk slab. Sidewalk slabs immediately adjacent to a tree shall be removed, recast, and not reset. So are we saying that if a sidewalk slab is heaved, that someone can't take the sidewalk slab away, repair the roots per the arborist, and then reset the slab? Because we're starting to talk about real money for people, and I think that if we want people to support and comply, that if we make this financially cumbersome, I mean, you see all the time, like the tiny little half inch that, look, we want people to fix that because we don't want someone to trip and lose all their teeth. So I just think that we want people to fix these. We're talking about public safety. So we have to keep public safety first. So I'm wondering if to remove, recast, and not reset, well, I think that we should take that out.
I think, I think that's when you're getting into the balancing, and I would agree that, resetting is probably the least expensive of the options that you have. So that's something you got to.
Yeah, look, I mean,
it's another part of the conversation that I think you should have with regard to that, because I think this contemplates the situation where the roots are right underneath the tree, and you got to figure out something else to do. But
yeah, but I think that every
I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying this has got to be part of the conversation.
Every heave is different on the sidewalk slab. So some are easily repaired and just reset. But at some point, people they think that, well, somebody knows the cement guy, right? I mean.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. I think it's part of the conversation you got to have.
So let's just, I would like to strike that.
Again, I'd like to see Chris give us some parameters here. Again, I know you can't even get a CO to sell your house with a sidewalk like that.
Yep.
Well, so in our town, there isn't a CO sidewalk issue in our town. So.
Right. We don't have one.
But that's, we know what you're saying.
Again, I'd still like to see some parameters here, because again, this is just taking out the word "soul" doesn't fix the issue.
I was trying.
I know it's good.
I was trying.
I know we're doing good here.
I agreed. We agreed again. It's getting dangerous territory. Go ahead.
It's still early.
And my only recommendation is I think it's covered by other sections, but it's up to that. It seems redundant, but that's up to the council.
So do you think we should do like one more section and then maybe come back to this at another meeting, or are we going to continue?
Paul says yes.
I think it's redundant. I'm crossing it out with my little.
Heather's asking, should we carry this to the next work session, or do you want to?
Saying, should we do one more section of this ordinance and then, go and, make corrections and talk to Chris, and then we'll bring back that section, but then, we can continue at a subsequent meeting. We just have a lot more to go through.
I think that's a good point. Let's put this aside, and then we can look at it with fresh eyes at our next meeting.
So we're going to move on?
Yep.
Okay. Could we go to E2 for pickleball days and hours, since we do have Nancy Begos here? And this way, she could come up and give us information about that. Is that okay? Okay, Nancy, come up, please.
Free stuff is half the packet.
So, I know that we discussed this last week, and I know the mayor had asked for information about the NCR and SCT. So Nancy did reach out to the vendor. That's all she did. She didn't do research, the vendor did. And so just please share with the council what you found out from the vendor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I do need to share with you is that it's almost impossible to hear you.
Hold 1 second. Carolyn,
Folks?
I think that the talking in the back of the room is disruptive, so thank you. Go ahead, Nancy, sorry.
It's hard to hear.
Yeah, it was. All of a sudden I heard all this talking. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
So as you requested, I have once again reached out to the acoustical surfaces consultant. I want you to know, in doing my research, that I have found out that this business has been in operation for 35 years. as remediation acoustical experts. My contact is Ted Weinman, and I believe that Heather has shared with you the email packets, and I have a copy for you this evening.
You just had that tonight
Okay.
on the dais.
Thank you. So that information should be in front of you. So in my conversation with Ted Weidman, who is the commercial brand manager for this company, his response to us is that the NCR is a noise reduction coefficient. It is a measurement of absorption. So the STC is a measurement of how much sound is blocked. The first sound attenuation product that the village purchased, that was purely a STC effort. So what we wanted to do over a year ago was we wanted to be able to block the sound from the inside of the courts to the neighborhood. So we purchased an STC product that would block the sound. What I am proposing to you, and I have proposed to you, is a product that is meant expressly to absorb the sound, which would have then a NCR rating, which is 0.75, which is what the mayor had asked me to investigate. And this product absorbs the noise within the court. So these are two completely different products measured in two completely different ways, serving different sound attenuation, and both of them together should certainly mitigate any other problems that we might have regarding sound at the pickleball courts.
Nancy, do you know what the original product STC rating was? Do we know that?
Yes, that's on the flyer. That's small print.
So
It is 21. I'm reading that right? For acoustical services? It's 21, but I'm not quite sure what the scale is for STC. But I know that on the scale for noise reduction coefficient, the NRC, it's a 0 to 1 scale, and so the 0.75 is a 75% absorption rate, which is the same thing as the absorption rate on the third quote that we got that was for what, $170,000? So it looks to me like this first bid from acoustical surfaces is a good deal, and it suits our purposes.
it does. And the NCR is the same as one of the other price quotes that we had received.
I think you mean NRC.
NRC.
Noise reduction coefficient.
NCR.
Yeah.
NRC.
Nancy, is there any place where this is used for this purpose that we could go see it?
So through my investigation, all of these companies have websites. I did go back to even Acousta Block, which is where we purchased the Acousta fence from, and doing further research. I saw that there are many different applications for this product, and one of them now is pickleball courts. So on all of their websites, they are, there is a need nationally for this type of product within residential communities, and they are explained there, their application and their use, and there's pictures.
So have
Tulsa-
they done applications in a, within a driving distance of us that we could, or even, I guess not, that we could talk to the town and see if they were happy, if they felt it helped?
We could certainly look into that, sure.
I mean, none of us have ever heard of this. I I don't want to, 22,000 or whatever it is. It's certainly much less than the 175,000,
Yes.
which is great. But I'd like to hear some reviews and some, yes, this worked, it reduced the sound before we spend money.
So the Sound Away product, which was the $75,000 one, that had an STC rating of 38 versus what we currently have at 21, and that has the NRC of 0.75. So I wonder, I don't know the answer, I'm just wondering out loud here, is the Sound Away product doing two things based on that explanation, right? One is sound absorbing, one is, so is one product doing both of those things? Because on the, hang on a minute, because on the quiet fiber, is that the acoustic block quiet fiber, that one doesn't have the STC rating, it only has an NRC. So what you're saying is that the NRC that's the highest level of sound absorbing, but
So the NRC is measured between 0 and 1.
Right, got it.
Right? So the 0.75 is above average, but not total absorption.
Got it. So the product that we're looking at is the 0.75.
Correct.
What I'm asking, though, is the other product, let me get the name of it again, the Sound Away, that one is showing two ratings, an STC and an NRC. So I don't know the answer, and I don't know that.
So
it almost appears as if that product is doing
both.
Two things.
Correct.
So that then becomes a superior product if it's doing two things, and I wonder.
But we don't need that right now because we already have the STC. We already have the blockage taken care of with the acoustic fence. That's already proven. It's already reduced the sound by 50%.
And we're going to retain that and put it on the outside of the fence, is that correct?
Yes.
And that's the STC 21.
Right.
Right.
So that's what he explained to me, that we don't need to spend the extra money. What we need to do is supplement the absorption of the sound in the interior because we've already blocked it, the sound, from penetrating through the fence.
Do you recall what the other product cost us? The one that's there now?
Yes, $22,000.
22. All right.
I'd be willing to go with the lowest cost product, because it seems to do what we need done.
And we already have the other half.
That's right.
In place, so we
Yeah.
don't have to worry about blockage, just
Right.
absorption.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was his recommendation. And he said that I already see that you have a product that's blocking the sound from the neighborhood. We've spent a lot of time on this, I can tell you. And he has explained it to me. If we were virtual, we could have him come in from Minnesota and share his expertise with us, because he is the sound engineer. I am not. I've learned a great deal in the last couple of weeks about sound and measuring, but this is what I found to date.
And in his letter, he said, assuming you already have the STC requirement met by the product that was already installed, you would want and need just the absorptive product. And so I'm going to guess that if he is trying to sell his product, that if there was any need at all for the more expensive product, he would recommend that because it would be in his interest to sell the more expensive product.
No, he doesn't carry that, but he's not, it's
No,
two,
he
three
carries
different
both.
vendors.
No, he does.
He carries them all.
Oh, he
He
carries
does.
them all. Okay, so he
Yes.
is, okay.
He
All right.
has an Acoustafence on his website.
Yeah, he says, please let me know as we have a product with both the S.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Got it.
both qualifications.
That's in this letter.
So it sounds like he's being kind of honest and not trying to upsell us.
Okay.
That's how I would take it.
I respect him. I think that, he listened to what our concerns were. He understood the application that we already had in effect, and he, shared with us his expertise as to what would better the situation.
I'd like to go with this resolution.
Okay. Sorry, I just see it here now. I didn't have it earlier, so just looking at it. Okay.
I would say about this resolution, it refers to the size of the panels that we would be ordering, and they would be 48 inches by 12 inches. I think that's 12 feet.
No, it was 100 and, I'm sorry, I can't do the math. It's
the
10,
measurements
it's 10
throw me
feet,
off.
120 inches it's supposed to be. It's a
120
typographical,
inches.
yes.
Oh, okay.
They're 10 feet.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, we need to add a 2, right?
What does everyone else think?
I'm good with the $23,000 item.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of moving ahead with it, and then upon getting it and installing it, and once everything's in, I would be in favor of having the same hours as tennis for pickleball, and then just kind of monitor it and see what happens.
Well, would we want to first do a sound, like understand the noise before, like first let's get it installed?
Can't hear you.
Sorry. Get it installed and then try to understand if we're successful, right? I think that it would be an easy test to see if it's successful. Right. I mean, then,
We've done this before.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
I have to tell you, this is my neighborhood. I live there. I live closer than many of the neighbors who have had issues. And I didn't even know that there were pickleball courts there. And once I learned of the issue, I spent quite a bit of time there when the courts are full. And I've gone much closer than my house. And I've gone around to many of these people's homes. It is, at best, ambient noise, and in some instances, I can't hear it if I try. So, and I believe that we should be trying to make it as good as possible for the neighborhood, which is why I want to make it even better than it is now. I mean, there are neighbors who live directly adjacent to it, to the pickleball courts, who have no problem and have written letters to that effect. But again, this is my neighborhood. When Pam first told me about this, long before I contemplated running for council, she said, "What's it like? You know, how bad is the noise?" And I said, "How would I know?" And she said, "It's by your house." I don't hear it, and I have since focused on it and gone around to try and hear it and to understand the issue. I won't say I don't see an issue. I don't hear an issue.
Yeah, I'm going to just say that if I review the letter from Maureen Kelly, I will wholly disagree with the suggestion that someone who lives right there is not at all impacted, or that casually we don't hear anything, because according to this, the pickleball court with muted balls had a recorded maximum impulse decibel of 82 dBA, and the unmuted had a maximum of 86 dBA. The neighborhood residual sound measured to 53 to 58. But if we look at the DEP and the Noise Reduction Act and look at what those decibels are supposed to be on the property line, that in excess of 80 dBA during the daytime hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And the reason Maureen Kelly referred to that is because that's in administrative code for the state of New Jersey. That's where that comes from. And she's saying that the impulsive sound in the air has this sound level. So I don't know that she actually ever did a sound level on the property line, and she's specifically referring to the residential property line. And we have an obligation because, according to these documents, we can have a noise ordinance, but the noise ordinance has to at least provide for this. It has to be more restrictive than even what is in this. So I disagree respectfully that just because we're not there, look, I don't hear any of it from my house, honestly, but I don't for a second imagine what somebody else is hearing, especially when I see the 82 dBA and the 86 dBA and the residual neighborhood noise of 53 to 58. And because we're talking, and I'm a big believer in quality of life issues, I wholly believe in quality of life issues for people, that they have the right to have some piece of an enjoyment of their property. But according to this, the noise is not ambient or non-existent.
Well, I read this report from the county differently. The sound of the ball, once muted, is 4 decibels lower on the court. And so we've already taken that remedial action and brought it down by 4 decibels, but that's on the court. When you leave the court, the sound dissipates very quickly. And in the neighborhood, the sound of the ball was 57, which is very close to what the ambient noise is, the rush of Route 17, the flapping flag, the kids shouting. And so I don't see that it's that much higher than the ambient noise, and I don't see that it exceeds, once you get to the neighborhood properties, the standard in the state statute. I feel for Simon Lee. I think he's describing a real problem, and therefore I am in favor of this compromise and doing what we can for him with these sound curtains.
And these are the current existing conditions, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so with added sound absorption material, that will then be lowered.
Mm-hmm. There's no current condition measured in somebody's backyard or in somebody's house. These conditions were measured from, you're on the edge of the pickleball court, you walk through somebody's backyard, their front yard, and across Eastbrook, or what's the name of that
Eastbrook.
street? Eastbrook. And that's where the sound study was taken. There was no sound study taken in anybody's backyard who was adjacent to the pickleball courts. That sound could be 80 decibels or 84 decibels. I spoke with Maureen Kelly today, and I asked her to give me her educated guesstimate as to what she thought the sound levels might be in the backyards of the people adjacent to these courts. And she couldn't, she said, I can't give you an answer. She said it could be as high as the sound on the court.
But I think what we're looking for is an added solution.
Right.
You know,
I
so
agree.
I don't know.
I totally
I'm not
agree.
following the conversation,
But
to be honest.
I don't think
we're
we
looking for a solution, correct?
Well, I'm only responding to the statement that, to Paul's assessment, that this was the equivalent of ambient noise. And so a little bit off, a little bit straight away from what you are absolutely correct. What I referred back to this letter from Maureen Kelly.
Kelly.
It's an Irish name. I referred back to this letter because this letter states something very, very different than ambient noise. Ambient noise is something that is preferable. Ambient noise is something that people want, that kind of low-level ambient calm noise. This report completely states otherwise. And so I was referring to that, and I think that the question will be, I think we should move forward with this, but I also think that we have to decide, and I think that even the homeowner can contact the county and have this type of a thing done in his home, in his yard. I believe that people, I think years ago we had a zoning board application that a homeowner did just that. So they could do that themselves and get their own baseline, but the question is, we should have that information, and then the question will be, what is the DBA that we believe somebody should live with in Ridgewood that makes them comfortable, since we've kind of imposed this there? And I think that it's important for us to look at that, the state administrative code, and understand what those DBAs are, what's acceptable, what's unacceptable, and where it falls, where we will fall into, a comfort level for somebody. So I was responding to him, not you.
I wasn't following. Sorry.
And
It's a long night. I reached out to him today via email, and I didn't hear back, and I just checked my phone, so we'll have to wait. Hopefully he'll get to me tomorrow.
I'm sorry,
I am
didn't
personally
have
good.
my mic on. I was just asking if there were any supply chain problems that the brand manager had told Nancy about.
Yeah, and I'm good with voting on this, moving forward with both the purchase of the panels and changing the hours, but having those hours, the tennis hours, take effect upon installation of the panels.
I'm absolutely against talking about changing any hours until we see if this has any effect on the sound levels in these people's yards. I mean, it's just awful that we would even consider changing the hours back before knowing if something works.
I think right now, like, we're in a place, and we should try this, because if we revert back to the full hours and then this is ineffective, or it's ineffective, then we're going to have another issue trying to revert. I almost feel more comfortable seeing what the outcome is first, but whatever everyone else decides, my personal feeling is, if you don't know what the outcome is and you're just going to go and change it back, then in my opinion, we may as well not spend the money. We shouldn't bother spending the money, because if we don't care enough for the outcome to wait until we know that outcome, and we're just going to go back and do it anyway, then don't spend the money. Don't spend the money. Save the money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of taxpayer dollars.
No, my opinion is that you want to get the full brunt of it. So you want to put the stuff in and then not have reduced hours, because you want to know what it's going to be like. Because I think that, for me at least, the goal is to get back to the same hours for everything. So if you have reduced hours and you put this material in, then you're not really hearing the full brunt of what the full hours would be. So I would say do what we're doing now, but in reverse. Put in the sound absorption material, have the full hours, and monitor it. And if it's, just as terrible or doesn't do anything, then, we have a whole other set of issues to do. But you'll never know what the full brunt is if you don't have the full hours in place.
But you could do the install and have the sound test again and see if those DBAs, what the outcome is on the DBAs. And then, because, like I said, if you put the hours back to they were, and then it doesn't work, then the whole issue is an issue again. It's going to be more difficult to say dial it back. I mean, maybe we should expand the hours somewhat and do the test at the same time, maybe not go full bore, maybe at least extend some. And negotiate some just to see where those out, if there's, a noticeable difference. But also, I think we should do a sound test. I just don't see putting back full hours if you don't, if it doesn't work, we have another issue on our hands.
But then we might have the same objection that we weren't in the house when we did the sound test.
I think that we have all, the discussion's becoming a bit circular. We've all stated our concerns and our positions. I think that we should move forward, poll the council, and move on.
Do you want to do a...
Okay, well, I know that there's a majority that wants to move forward, so we'll move forward. And we'll put the purchase of this on next week's agenda.
And also adjust the hours pending installation of the panels.
Well, we have to wait till, we have to know.
Okay, I don't know if Councilwoman Perrin agreed to that.
Right.
I'm sorry?
Did you agree to changing the hours as soon as the panels were installed?
I'm agreeing with with Michael Seaton's suggestion.
So restore the hours in full, which is also what Councilman Vaggiano said. Restore the hours in full to tennis hours, and then see and monitor it.
Yes.
So
Okay.
the hours will be after the install, correct?
Yeah, definitely not before, because then that wouldn't make sense, because then you wouldn't have any sound absorption material, and you wouldn't be able to gauge the full brunt of everything until that was in. So it would make sense to put that in and then see what it's gonna be like.
Okay.
Okay. All right, got it. Thanks. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, we'll go back to under policy, power tools, landscaping, and yard maintenance equipment. This was discussed last week. The changes are we wanted to add motorized construction equipment as well as manual tools, changing the beginning hour to 8 a.m. instead of 7:30 a.m. Monday through Friday, adding Juneteenth as a federal holiday. Because, and then we had an additional item, which was on the dais this evening, which maybe is more clear because it says when it is permitted instead of, it makes more sense. Same hours, 8 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. permitted on Saturday, and then prohibited entirely on Sunday, which is exactly what we have now. And then the only addition was New Jersey state holiday of Good Friday. The other issue, though, with that is the state of New Jersey also recognizes Election Day, General Election Day, as a state holiday. So I think it would be confusing to put Good Friday in there and not General Election Day. The Village of Ridgewood is not closed on General Election Day. We still issue, it is not a federal holiday. So we still have our PEOs out, enforcing parking on General Election Day. So I think it would be confusing to have one state holiday and not the other, and one of those state holidays having the village open for business that day.
So I actually had typed in another modification. So I typed in on all federal and New Jersey state holidays and the days on which they are officially celebrated, because, and that only actually happens twice.
Mm-hmm.
It happens on July 4th, because if July 4th falls on a Saturday or Sunday, the actual date that it's, the holiday becomes, the observed day is the following Monday, and that would also happen on Juneteenth, because that, the rest of them either fall on the actual day.
Juneteenth is actually a Friday.
But not
believe.
all, but
No,
not,
it's different every year.
it's different every year.
I don't know if it is.
It's the 19th, but now, oh yeah, and the reason I'm saying that is because I read an article that Juneteenth falls on a Sunday or Saturday this year, and so the observed day is going to be on the 17th. Oh, it must fall on a Sunday, so the observed day is actually going to be the Friday, I think the 17th.
Okay.
So I think that we have to say,
Yeah, the observed day, I agree. My concern is having Good Friday as a holiday and then General Election Day is a state holiday.
so, I mean, then I guess, well, let me just go back a step. Because of the uniform Monday, the uniform holiday, Observation Day is Monday, Memorial Day, Martin Luther King, Washington, all of those fall on the Monday.
I agree with the observed.
Okay, fine.
I
Okay.
agree.
So I think if we're going to, I do think that we should add the state holidays and add Good Friday and then Election Day, if everyone's okay with that. Even though everything's open.
I think it's going to be confusing.
So,
Again.
well, we can just say, and the following state of New Jersey designated public holiday is only then Good Friday. So you want
It's
to say,
also General Election Day.
well,
I think you're going to harm some businesses.
on Good Friday?
There's a
I
lot
was
of
thinking the
people
same
that
thing
work
about
on
Election Day.
Election Day and good, I mean,
So I'll share this with you. A couple of years ago, Heather knows this. I would think our first modification to this happened in, what's the amended date? I don't see it. Maybe 2017 or 18, because we'd received calls, complaints. People were home. It was their only day off, on like a Memorial Day or whatever day it was. And somebody was out doing work on a commercial property, so we made a modification, and it has come up several times again. So I don't know. I defer to everyone else. I'm, New Jersey state holidays plus the federal, or you want to?
I think it's easy to Google what are the federal holidays, and you're going to be able to get that very easily. I think if you try to get the New Jersey state holidays, it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Okay.
So just do federal holidays?
That's what it was originally. We did add Juneteenth because that's a federal holiday. However, like I said, the state holidays, New Jersey state holidays, are Good Friday and General Election Day. But General Election Day, village government is operating. We're open. We still issue summonses for parking on General Election Day. So I think that's going to be confusing for people.
Okay, yeah. All right, so we'll leave that. I'm fine with that. And let me just go back to the wording on that. So on federal holidays and the end, so I think I had so we'll just make that end the days they are celebrated, on which they are officially celebrated. And then I just put them in calendar order, if that was okay.
They were in calendar order
Were they?
originally, too. But that's okay.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just changed the wording, I'm sorry, to say that they're in calendar order. That's what I did. I just
Okay.
put them in calendar order.
So do we agree that we're going to delete the words New Jersey state and New Jersey state holiday?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. Okay.
I have a question, because Mike wasn't here last week, and I don't think we really decided. I see that the hours changed from 7:30 in the morning to 8 in the morning.
Right.
And I think we were kind of torn about that. People were saying in the summertime, when it's light out early, the landscapers start at 7:30. Is it going to harm them to move this to 8 o'clock?
Yeah, but that's-
Mike, what do you think?
That's 2 months out of the year. I think that we're talking about the full year and the noise and everything else that goes on with it.
It is,
Yeah,
but Monday
no.
through Friday, I mean, most people are, I don't want to single out people that have kids, but if you have kids, you're up and they're going to school. I don't know. Is it gonna hurt? I'm worried about it hurting businesses.
So it's just the noise from the equipment. So it's like the time you can turn the equipment on. So I don't really think a half hour makes that big of a difference, because you could still go to the site, you could set up, you could pull the stuff out of the trailer, you could get ready, and then what are you really going to have, like 15 minutes, maybe 20 at the most, until you can start, and then you just start.
Okay, I
So
agree with that.
I
If you can go and set up and, because
Yeah, you can do that.
that makes more noise when you're doing that.
Yeah, but it's not. You're not turning on like the equipment.
Well,
You're
it's not
running
just
or pulling
power.
up.
It's not just power tools anymore. We've changed that.
To manual tools as well, and motorized construction equipment.
Yeah, I mean, but they can do manual work.
You could pull the trailer up, and you could take equipment out, and you could set it up, and you could put it down where it needs to go. And if there's other like trimming or stuff that you need to do, it doesn't say that you
All right.
can't. You can't work it all. It's just you can't turn the lawnmowers on and the blowers and everything until 8 o'clock. So again, it's like a half hour difference. I don't.
All right, I'm fine with that then. I was thinking like you couldn't even go there till 8 o'clock.
No, that wouldn't. Again, if you're just pulling up in a truck, there's traffic on the road, so there's people parking and driving and everything else. So it's just the noise from an engine, but you can't really do anything. You can't limit that to times, but you can with the equipment. So.
I will, as I say, I will defer to the council, but I think Lorraine makes a really good point. And bear in mind, when you say, well, the extra car, these guys are going from 6 o'clock in the morning. So, it's not like, oh, well, we were just getting there at 7:30. They would otherwise get there at 7 and begin to stage.
Yeah, that was the part of the problem, though, because I think that I think 8 o'clock is just reasonable at this point. I agree with Mike. I think people can set up and get, their act together. But,
So everyone's okay with the 8 a.m.?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so we're set. The next one is the resolution on Project Pride. I know that Councilwoman Reynolds and Mayor Newton worked on this one.
All right, does anyone find any typos?
Yes, I got one.
Because I typed it so fast. I really was like ripping through, and I was...
Third line, beatified.
Yeah.
Wait.
Unified.
Oh, good, okay.
I have to say, I stopped and thought, beatified?
Beautiful.
I said to Heather, I don't think I've ever typed so fast in my life. Okay. Okay, we got it. Anything else? We're going to
Okay, so you're
beautify, and
okay.
we will beatify and beautify
So
public
everyone's
areas.
okay with the
Wait, were there any
proposal?
other typos?
That's the only one I caught.
Really? Wow, that's pretty good. Okay, good. I don't feel so bad. Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
If I saw another typo,
I am sure. Okay, good.
Okay, the next item is under operation. Accepting the donation for the lighting at Memorial Park at Venice Square. As you recall, in the spring of 2016, various partners came together to raise funds in support of a professionally designed and installed permanent lighting project for Memorial Park in Venice Square. This was in 2 phases. The first is low wattage, long-lasting LED fixtures to provide uplighting and downlighting throughout the park, and the second includes pathway lighting in the form of light bollards stationed throughout the brick walkways. The illumination of the park will add security and comfort, and the lighting will also enhance the park evening use for special events, concerts, movies, and music by having a welcoming added glow to the center of town. Resident Bill Gilsenan, Brooke Silber, lighting expert and designer, the Conservancy for Ridgewood Public Lands, and municipal departments of engineering, signal, and Parks and Recreation all collaborated on the various stages of installation, which is valued at approximately $244,400. The project is complete, and it's now going to be gifted to the Village of Ridgewood, so this is accepting the donation of the lighting.
I have to tell you, I was with Bill while he was doing this. This was a heart and soul project for him, and he is a great citizen of our community to have put his time, his effort, calling people for money to get this thing done, and I think that we should all be exceptionally grateful.
We were here, I don't recall how many years ago it was. I think Cynthia Hallaby can tell us how long ago it was that we first saw the presentation. Do you recall when that was? Could it have been 2015?
It was a long time ago.
It was 15, yeah. It's fascinating that was 2015, and I think up here we all sat and said, this is magnificent, and I think we saw the work, kind of the preliminary layout and ideas kind of being hatched, and so thank you.
Yeah, thank you to the Conservancy. I love the bollards. They are so artistic.
Okay.
Any questions on it?
The final item is a review of next week's public meeting agenda. We have several proclamations: Read Across America Day, Jamboree Days, because it's been changed to March, early March. Super Science Saturday, which will be a virtual event again. And then Dad's Night Days for Hawes School and Somerville School. We have a swearing in of police officer, a police lieutenant, and also a resolution of appointment and swearing in of our tax assessor. The next items are, we have no introductions or public hearings for Ridgewood Water for ordinances, resolutions for Ridgewood Water, water billing and data collection services, Title 59 approval and award of contract, Title 59 approval and award of contract for tree maintenance services, Title 59 approval and award of contract for pipes, appurtenances, and service materials, Title 59 approval and award of contract for landscaping services, award contract under National Joint Powers Alliance Cooperative Purchasing Contract, various material supplies and equipment for Ridgewood Water Facilities, award professional services contract, hydrogeological consulting services for well maintenance and testing programs, and authorizing a sustainable yard and native plants for Ridgewood Water headquarters. So it's actually authorizing a change order for that. The next one, ordinances for introduction. We have, we're going to take off the first one that was on the draft agenda. We're going to bring that back later. Amend Chapter 222, power tools, manual tools, landscaping, machinery, and yard maintenance equipment. Manual, sorry. Actually, I apologize. That first one we're keeping on. It's the time limit parking on Doremus Avenue, which will help the exit and entrance for Orchard School. The power tools, amend Chapter 265. That's the one that we're going to wait, because those are the ones where we're going to make changes. The next one is the long-term leasing of village parking spaces for commercial dumpsters. I don't know, I don't know what the final outcome of that was, honestly. I know we talked about it. I didn't know if you wanted to move forward with that one. If we wanted to just put it into place in case the vendor did decide to back out.
My recollection is that we decided to put it in place as a stopgap in the event that other measures were not successful.
I thought that's what it was. I wanted confirmation.
That was my recollection as well.
Thank you. And then amending Chapter 145, which are fees for the lease of those parking spaces for the dumpsters. We have public hearings on a bond ordinance for general capital, which includes paving and also the playground at Kings Pond Park. Amending Chapter 145, fees for sewers and sewage disposal fees. Amending Chapter 265, vehicles and traffic for the Route 17 park and ride lot. Amend Chapter 265, vehicles and traffic for Ridgewood resident daily parking passes. And then authorizing an energy aggregation program for residential properties in Ridgewood. Resolutions, we have award of contract for pickleball courts, soundproofing Glen School pickleball courts, or professional services contract, 2022 surveying services retainer for preparation of tax assessment map, award additional contract under state contract, parts, materials, and supplies for fleet services, or contract under state contract, firewalls for IT, award contract under state contract, upgrade, replace tough books for police department, award contract under Bergen County contract, rock salt. We have, sorry, I can't turn the page. Awarding contract under National Cooperative Purchasing Alliance, maintenance, repair, support, and replacement services, and licensing fees for security cameras and license plate readers. Approving 2021 budget reserve transfers, accepting the donation of the lighting for Memorial Park at Van Ness Square, accepting the grant from the New Jersey Historic Trust for the Zabriskie Shedler House, award professional services contract, increased hours for public health nurses for COVID mitigation efforts, authorize an additional award for disposal of ground yard waste and grass clippings. This was actually discussed at the December 1st work session. For some reason, we overlooked it. The council approved it when we discussed it, so we're finally getting it onto a public meeting agenda. Endorse application for community development home block grant, Children's Aid and Family Services, the renovation of the home at 138 Prospect. We adopted this resolution last month for $180,000. They subsequently notified us it was for $200,000, so we have to redo the resolution. Authorize release of escrowed funds for Flo's Market Coffee concession at the Ridgewood train station. Amend purpose and membership for Project Pride Committee. Authorize refund of tax overpayment for Block 4007, Lot 27. Authorize settlement agreement for Roca versus Village of Ridgewood. Declare property surplus for the Streets Division. Authorize the Gold Star Families Monument and Memorial Park at Van Ness Square. We're going to appoint an assistant tax assessor. Our previous tax assessor is going to come back and assist our new assessor for, sporadically, but officially we have to just appoint him as an assistant. He has to, he resigned obviously as the tax assessor because there can only be one. And this will allow him to assist him. It'll probably be for maybe 2 to 3 weeks, a couple of hours a week, just to get him acclimated to the office. And this is the way we can do it according to the state. Then we have a lot of appointments to various boards and committees, including the Central Business District Advisory Committee, the Citizen Safety Advisory Committee, the Open Space Committee, the Parks, Recreation, and Conservation Board, the Shade Tree Commission, the Green Ridgewood Committee, the Ridgewood Green Team, Historic Preservation Commission. Mayor, I'm going to have that.
I will have that for you, yes.
And then members to Project Pride Committee. We'll probably have that too, right?
Oh.
So that's what I have. Do you want any of those off of the consent agenda?
Yes, the pickleball courts, please.
Okay,
Well,
sure.
wait a minute. Wait. That, the one that we have up there is just the sound, I just want to be clear too.
It is just the soundproofing.
Okay, fine.
We just
Okay,
got that.
fair.
We got some information today. Like I feel
Okay.
like
All right, fair.
I'd also, while we're talking, I don't know if it's possible. Can we put on the agenda a discussion about having a deadline for getting items for council meetings? Because the amount of stuff that came in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday this week, it's ridiculous. We cannot be prepared for meetings.
Yeah, you received 2 actually items because it was the reserve transfers and it was the PowerPoint for the sustainable native garden. We had additional backup, which I didn't get till Tuesday, so that's why it got to you today. And that was for the power tools, and that was for what was the other thing I just had put out?
Well, Nancy Bigos just sent stuff today.
That one as well. That I just got Tuesday, so that was one.
I think we need to have a cutoff deadline.
So we typically kind of do, and in fairness, we try to say by Friday we want to have packets intact, And I think back in 2016, we kind of established a rule that said if we don't have everything intact in place by Thursday, it couldn't go on the agenda. But when it came to the budget transfers, and actually it's the reason I typed so quickly, because I didn't want to violate the rule I had kind of put in place, and that's hence my typo. But I think that because the budget transfers, we kind of went, okay. We knew that the pickleball discussion was happening. I think this was a little late. I actually didn't even see it myself. It was here. I think that makes it difficult. We're going to try to continue to adhere to that. And this way everybody gets their information. If we don't have it, we have to pull it from the agenda, and that's it.
I mean, I just want to say, this is not, I'm going to say this is an every meeting thing. This is not just tonight. I've been complaining about it.
I know,
since
we've
the day I
started
was
as
elected.
of January. I was, you brought that to my attention in December. I started in January. I told 2 people no, which was the mayor and also Mr. Rooney for the budget reserve transfers. Unfortunately, the issue with Mr. Rooney was that Mr. Sanzari was actually preparing that resolution, and he was out several days last week. And so he couldn't get it to us by Friday. And the mayor miraculously got it done in about an hour, maybe 45 minutes. I was very impressed. So,
No, I can understand that, and I can understand there's exceptions, but I feel like it's every single meeting. So
okay, well, we've had
we need to tighten it up a little.
We'll do our best. We'll do our best to get it done, okay? I agree. It's very hard for you to review items when you don't have them. I absolutely agree with you. So we will do our very best to get everything to you.
Thank you.
And Heather does try valiantly, and I'll apologize for the PowerPoint on the native plants, because we would have let that slide except for the fact that by the end of February, all the plants are sold. And we
Okay,
had to
I
get
have
in.
to say, in fairness to the native plants, I have been thoroughly enjoying all the colors over here and the reflection over here. It's like a burst of color, which we never see in here, so I'm okay, because it's really pretty.
It's very nice.
It is very nice.
I have a question. Can we put the pickleball hours on the agenda for next week?
Sure.
And I just want to check. I didn't notice where it was. The grab and go. That's not on the consent agenda.
No, we're going to, remember, we're going to
didn't
look at
finish.
that again and redo it. I said that we'd bring it back at the end of February.
Okay. And just going forward, in case it gets away from me, I'm going to need to recuse myself from the grab and go portion of this, so that cannot be on the consent agenda whenever it goes through.
Okay.
So Heather, just as a matter of administrative end, on pickleball days and hours, if we don't know how long it's going to take for the material to come in, so we can't set a date other than a date of when that is installed. So,
Right.
and then I guess I'd like that, I don't want that on a consent agenda.
That's how I was going to write it, if that's okay with all of you.
Say that again?
I was going to write it stating upon placement of the panels on the pickleball courts.
Right, which is fine.
Okay.
But we just won't have an actual date on it.
No, we won't.
Okay, all right. That's good with everybody?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that it? We're done?
That's it. That's it.
Okay, so with that, we will go back to public comments not to exceed 5 minutes per person.
All right, good evening. Cynthia Hallaby, 1 Franklin Avenue. I'm here as president of the Conservancy for Ridgewood Public Lands. I know you spoke about Bill Gilsonen's project, which we're very proud of.
Excuse
But
me, Cynthia, if you
can
could
you not-
speak into the mic a little bit, yeah.
Is that better?
Hopefully, these soundproofing panels will be as good as the materials we have in our masks.
Yes.
Because then it will be incredibly effective.
Incredibly difficult. So anyway, so what I would like to tell you is that this year the Conservancy is celebrating their 10th anniversary. 10 years of following our mission of enhancing Ridgewood's public lands. Every year the Conservancy raises money from generous residents and friends and they choose a town park to enhance. We are very fortunate to have had the help of Parks and Rec Department, the Signal Department when needed, and the design expertise of Chris Raimondi to help us effect many of our goals. Over the past 10 years, we have invested tens of thousands of dollars making these park improvements. The lighting project is the second at Memorial Park at Van Ness Square. Our first was in 2020, and we completed a major renewal at that time. We opened up the area by removing dense and overgrown shrubbery and installed new plantings, 2 benches, and 2 magnificent planters. The VFW was so pleased with the result that they recognized the Conservancy at their 2020 Veteran Day service. And the reason I tell you this is because I would like to make a clarification to comments that were made last week following the Gold Star project presentation. Last fall, I was pleased to be consulted at a VFW meeting with Bob Paoli and Chris Stout to discuss their original design, which had already been approved by the council during the summer without any site view. The outcome of our meeting was that the Gold Star project should be represented on the War Memorial itself and not as a separate monument on the grass. This would have necessitated using 144 square feet of parkland with all the problems that this would entail. More importantly, it was agreed that this way the Gold Star families would be properly recognized in an appropriate and lasting manner. I then met with the VFW committee and the sculptor, and I'm glad that the council has approved the second set of plans, which does not destroy any of the greenery. I have here a copy of the Conservancy's 10 years of accomplishments. I will give them to Eileen, perhaps for distribution. And we look forward to the spring when we will start our next CBD project, which is the renewal along North Broad Street. So thank you for your support. And actually, while I'm here, I don't know if in the tree ordinance, the tree wells, if you have got anything that says that people cannot put stakes in the tree wells. There is a tree that is dying slowly, actually quite fast, outside the steel wheel, where they have hammered in a stake about this side, right down the trunk and into the roots. And on it are beautiful lights. So I think that there should be something that covers not being allowed to put stakes in the tree wells. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia, and thank you for your work on the Land Conservancy.
Okay, now you can start. Denise Lima, 319 East Glen Ave. I just want to follow up from my first comments. I resent the 3 emails to everybody in the Village Council that I didn't get a response from last month. And then second, Heather, the email that I sent on 12/2 about the police website not working, it's still not working. And so I wonder when we have a disaster, active shooter, tornado, fire, flood, where are we going to put the police website up and running? Because we have to have a plan on how we're going to communicate. And I think that I'll save that for another discussion, but the police website's still not working. I want to go to the water landscaping. So I think there's a lot of residents that feel that the cost of the building was exorbitant, that we have a lot of issues with the quality of water. Is now a good PR time to spend $100,000 on plants?
It wasn't 100.
That's not what the cost is?
It's like $2,000.
It was $2,000. You're reading the actually. You're
The
reading.
award-
You're
Sorry.
reading our ordinance. You're reading our our landscaping budget for the water department for all the properties for the year.
All properties.
Yeah, you
4
read it.
towns.
Yeah, 4 towns.
It was 2,300 for,
Just for the building on Maple?
Right.
Right.
Got it.
Right.
And to that point, I had to take another look at that to make sure it was,
Yeah.
it was that.
Still a little
The
So-
plants are pretty, but they're not that pretty.
Yeah, no.
Still seems-
$100,000 for plants in the front of the building would be.
Yeah,
Lots
okay.
of plants on a little plot.
Thank you for that. I'm now looking at the Shedler grant for $499,000. Yes, okay. For the exterior part of the house, yes? That's what it says? Okay.
No,
What
it's
is the item?
It's the interior. Interior.
It's both. It's for the house, period.
Right.
Oh, and interior, is that what you
Yeah,
said?
it's
Okay,
both.
I just
It's
got
both.
it, a little delayed.
Actually, why don't you just finish your comments and then we'll
Yeah,
see.
okay. So it's 60, okay, so regardless, what's the itemization that this supports $499? Like, is it windows, is it wood floors inside, is it, like, what? Where would I find the itemization of $499,000? What are we going to do with that?
Okay.
Okay. I'm moving forward to the code for the power tools. Let me go over the easy things first. Easter. Is Easter not a federal holiday? Like, it's not down here.
It's a Sunday and you can't.
All right, just let's finish, Denise, let's
Okay,
finish
Easter.
all the comments.
Okay,
and then we're gonna
Easter's
respond.
fine. Should this, I would recommend that this also be applied to not only commercial but residential. So what's happening, and why isn't it residential as well? We have residents that on Thanksgiving are blowing leaves, are snow plowing during Christmas, working all day Sunday hammering with power tools. I would say we want to extend this to residents as well. That's all I had with that. The shade tree stuff, lights around public trees. So this year we decorated the looning tree. I guess I owe money for a permit for that. I'll make a donation. We say in this, it's all about protecting the canopy. Yet everything that's in here is about the girth and the diameter of the tree. So what is the height recommendations? I think people are always worried about, I'm going to cut the tree down. It's a 30-year-old tree. It's 50 feet tall, and I'm going to replace it with this little small tree. So how is that protecting the canopy? And so I'd like to see in here something about the height in the resolution as well, so we all kind of know, because everybody always asks, well, what's going to happen with that? And what is 6 inches, 8 inches times pi and all that? You know, it would just be good if we could dummy down sometimes these resolutions to just, call it what it is. In the definitions, or when we say no person or property owner, do we know that it's all clear that it means businesses as well? So a business like Valley or downtown or somebody can't be cutting down trees as well? I would just ask that we put that in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
5 minutes goes by fast. Can I come back?
Good evening. Ann Burton Walsh, 112 South Irving. I just wanted to echo the comments made over the past 6 months, and especially last week, and then earlier this meeting, just asking for hybrid access to be put on the agenda and be put to a vote. The full constituted council has not yet discussed that, and I'm still failing to understand what the reasons are for opposition. I mean, I'm sympathetic to meeting length. It's very late, but it seems like tonight's meeting is a good example for all of the drivers of meeting length, and public comments was not really one of them. And I don't think the public, should be shortchanged. And then I would, really appreciate it if the council would acknowledge that it is more than 10 people who are in favor of this. In addition to the individuals who have spoken in favor of hybrid access, there are, by my count, at least 4 organizations that have also spoken in favor, totaling, I'm sure, over several hundred members, including Pastor Van Sant's Friends to Friends congregation. So thank you for continued consideration of putting that on the agenda and putting it to a vote. And then on the tree ordinance, I just wanted to say thank you very much for, getting to work on that and discussing it. I think it's so important, and I think that it will be a really good deterrent to new homeowners from cutting down trees. I'll admit that when we first moved out here from the city, and I grew up in Ridgewood, but we moved out here 11 years ago, and we had this vision of, a straight line of arborvitae that we wanted in our backyard, and there was a gorgeous black walnut in the way, and I won't even say what the DBH was. We took it down, a neighbor begged me not to. We did it anyway. I still, feel terribly about that, and karma has come back to bite us, though, because a neighbor recently clear-cut about 5 enormous maples, and now we have lost most of the shade that we used to have, most of the green screen, and so I've become very passionate about this, and I really think that having an ordinance like this on the books will make new homeowners who are not yet appreciative of the canopy, think twice before cutting down trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thanks, Ann.
Rorick Holiday, 1 Franklin Avenue. To follow up on Ms. Perrin's comment about Health Barn, I, as a big supporter of Stacy and Tina Health Barn, was delighted that on Monday the 31st, I believe, she did sign the lease because all the paperwork came in. But I understand as of now, the village has not yet signed the lease back. When will that happen? Is someone going to answer? Do you know?
We're just going to wait till public comments are done, and then we'll respond. Go ahead.
Sorry?
We will wait for finish, and
Okay.
then we'll respond.
The other thing
That
is,
was Denise,
I'm
too.
also a big supporter of hybrid meetings. And a comment was made about all the people calling certain of you saying, no, never have public hybrid meetings, which kind of surprised me. I did put in an Oprah request asking for any emails received by Ms. Knudsen and Ms. Reynolds from anyone that mentions the word hybrid. It'd be interesting to see how many people have actually written against having hybrid meetings. And what I don't understand, what fails, I'm not smart enough to understand some of these things, but why would anyone be against a hybrid meeting? I mean, if no one is forcing anyone to come to an in-person meeting, no one is forcing anyone to go on a hybrid meeting. But if someone wants to be on a hybrid meeting, you're not allowing him to do that. So why would anyone then say we can't have hybrid meetings? It is silly. One last thing, and again, the expression I like to use is I'm not smart enough, because I'm not smart enough. I'm not a lawyer. But all the discussions that went back and forth with the ordinance about the trees, and believe me, I love trees, and no one fought the vandalization of the 17 trees around the train station like I did. But isn't there some kind of a uniform code you could access or tap into? I'm sure lots of towns have passed ordinances protecting trees. It looks like you're reinventing the wheel. I mean, again, I'm not smart enough to be able to debate the various issues. And so, I mean, my suggestion would be maybe Mr. Rogers should tap into someone else who's done it, and then use that as a base. My big concern about an ordinance is that another ordinance that has to be enforced by the village is another ordinance we don't need. I think if one were to pile up all the ordinances we have, they probably stretch about 100 feet. Who's going to enforce that? Also, my concern about an ordinance like that is you get into things that just don't make sense, like why measure a tree by the diameter? Different species grow at different rates. Okay? Should be the age of the tree. And But the key thing that makes me uncomfortable with the ordinance, and believe me, nothing I hate more than to see a big tree cut down. Believe me. But you're getting into the weeds with details that can never be enforced because they become judgmental. So you have to be very, very careful. But more importantly, what is the village doing to engage the public to plant trees? I never hear that from you. Engage the public. And the public isn't as stupid as sometimes people think they are. Engage the public to plant trees. Also, what you could do, and what the arborists could do, would be to work with tree maintenance companies to help maintain trees. That's just as important as planting trees. And there's no talk about maintaining trees. I know in our case, before we sold our house, we had one tree that Cindy held onto for dear life. It's an oak tree that must be 150 years old, had a few branches left in it, and every year we would have a company come in and trim it and feed it and everything else. Now the new owners cut it down, and I understand why, because it was leaning about 20 degrees towards the house. So anyway, the big thing is we need to engage the public to plant trees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Christine Amundsen, 469 Vandenberg Avenue. Currently a member of Green Ridgewood and recently retired as the energy specialist for the public schools in Ridgewood. And my comments tonight pertain to a topic that's on the agenda for next week. I don't think I can be here next week. I enthusiastically support the EAGER program.
I'm sorry,
Stands
the
for
what?
Encouraging Green Energy for Ridgewood, EAGER, and the acronym.
Eager. I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Just Christine,
Okay.
Christine, just kind of lean in a little more and
Okay.
project into the microphone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
go
know
ahead.
why I was
thank
worried
you.
about getting
Yeah,
too
I got
close.
it. Eager. You
Okay.
enthusiastically
Eager, yeah.
support Eager. Go ahead.
Okay. We have the ability to reduce greenhouse gases, to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, and to increase the renewable energy component to our electric pricing to a higher level than the current PSE&G standard. And the way that this can be done is by aggregating a large number of accounts of our residential, of the residential accounts together and soliciting, having a consultant solicit bids on our behalf. And three things to consider are, there's no risk in seeking bids. It's not going to cost the village to have the consultant perform this task on our behalf. And residents, should we decide to proceed, residents have the ability to opt out at any time. I also want to mention that I'm aware that the village is a member of New Jersey SEM, so that as a village we're purchasing electricity through an aggregated electric agreement. And it also comes with a renewable component that's greater than the PSE&G current standard requirement. And I will mention, because of my experience with the schools, that the schools are on an agreement which has a renewable component that is greater than PSE&G standard. So I believe it's important to move forward with passing the ordinance and to authorize the establishment of a government energy aggregation program. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Carolyn Jacoby, 160 Godwin Avenue. I have to take this off. I'm done. I'm sure you're done too. Thank you for considering the tree ordinance. Mike and I have been involved with this for a long time. Pam, thank you for revisiting this, which really, it's an ordinance that is so important for this community in terms of controlling the clear cutting of trees, the removal of trees indiscriminately. There are a lot of details that have been revisited prior to our original going over the ordinance. So there's a lot more in there than I think, but as I mentioned, and Paul also suggested, don't get caught up in the weeds. Look at what the purposes are. If you don't want to address certain things, take them out of the ordinance. Pass the basic purpose of the ordinance and then revisit other aspects to it. And if there are any questions regarding trees in the central business district or other aspects of why do we use a DBH, we're looking at industry standards. There are reasons why things were included, so please reach out to us at any time with any questions and to clarify anything. And I am hoping that the budget will address part of Mr. Hallaby's questions about trees and engaging the public, and this year to really make a robust movement toward reforesting, retreeing, and keeping Ridgewood green. Thank you for all that you are doing in this regard, and especially Mayor Knudsen and Councilwoman Reynolds for revisiting Project Pride. I'm so hoping that we can have a concerted view of what the central business district will look like, trees, wells, and flower pots, and other areas too. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. So just real quick, I anticipate the health barn lease will be signed, fully signed before the weekend, probably tomorrow, Friday. Shade tree height, I actually agree. I think the height is kind of interesting. The commercial versus residential use of tools, I think that we find a lot of folks, it's their only day off, it's their downtime, and we really don't want to impede homeowners' ability to maintain their own property. We get it. Easter's on a Sunday, so it's not there. It doesn't work on that ordinance. Heather, the police website has been down because we had a correspondence. I actually thought that you were on the reply to see what was going on with that.
There is actually, there are many required items on a police department website now, and so we're waiting to, they've actually put money into their budget for a redo of their whole website. So we'll see what that pans out. But in the meantime, if there were an emergency, such as you mentioned, obviously it would be on the village website. We would do reverse 911 calls. We would use social media. There would be all sorts of ways that we could communicate. So.
And the last thing is the $499,000 Historic Preservation Trust Fund grant. I don't think that it was, when we did that, we had a whole bunch of letters from residents and a whole bunch of folks that sent in letters in support of the grant, but I don't think that we had to submit specifics on this. I just don't recall, and Janet's not here. I do know that it was a grant for the interior and exterior of the house, and that we could use it as a match to funds already spent, hence that 125 that's allocated, and that's where we're at. So with that, we're going to...
Well, I just wanted to say one thing.
Sure.
With regard to the tree protection ordinance, we also did not want to reinvent the wheel, but we did get from the League of Municipalities lawyer what they understood to be the 6 other ordinances, and we used them for comparison. And they're way more detailed than the one we're looking at.
Okay. All right, so thank you, everyone. Thank you again for wearing your mask, for helping us conduct these meetings, and we appreciate that. And with that, we will take a resolution to go into closed session.
Be it resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on February 2, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter on the agenda can be reached, and that said closed session will be held in the Sidney V. Stoltz Jr. courtroom of the Village of the Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey, and be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to personnel matters to include appointments to boards and committees and police department, and contract negotiations to include Ridgewood Public Library and the town garage. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 at SAC, and be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Who was that?
Second.
Lorraine?
Lorraine and Mike.
Second?
Second.
Mike? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Pardon?
That's true.
If I was, there you go.